I'd like to call to order today's Metropolitan Area Planning Commission meeting for February 18th. Before we get started, I just want to remind that for all of you people that are attending this meeting virtually, remember to mute your mics until you're ready to speak, and then remember to unmute your mic so that we can hear you. And also for the commissioners here in the chambers that have microphones, please remember to speak into the microphone. And for those of you that don't have a microphone in front of you, please go to the podium if you wish to, if you have any questions or comments that you would like to make. And with that, we'll go ahead and if we could have our opening comments, please.
Before we begin the agenda, the Wichita-Sedgwick County Metropolitan Area Planning Commission and the Wichita-Sedgwick County Board of Zoning Appeals would like to take this opportunity to welcome everyone to this public hearing. For those at Century 2, copies of the agenda for today's meeting, the public hearing procedure and Planning Department staff reports on all agenda items are available in the lobby. The Planning Commission's and the BZA's bylaws limit the applicant on a zoning, subdivision, or variance application and his or her representative to a total of 10 minutes of speaking time at the start of the hearing on that item, plus up to 2 minutes at the conclusion of that hearing. All other persons wishing to speak on agenda items are limited to 3 minutes per person. However, if they feel that it is needed and justified, the chairman may extend these times by up to 2 minutes. All speakers are requested to state his or her name and address for the record when beginning to speak. When you are finished speaking, please share your name, address, and the case number on the sheet provided in the room or the GoToMeeting comments box. This will enable staff to notify you if there are any additional proceedings concerning that item. Please note that all written and visual materials you present to the Commission and the Board will be retained by the Secretary as part of the official record. If you are not speaking but you wish to be notified about future proceedings on a particular case, please provide your contact information to the Planning Department. The Planning Commission and the Board are interested in hearing the views of all persons who wish to express themselves on the agenda items. However, we ask that all speakers please be as courteous and concise as possible and avoid long repetitions of facts or opinions which have already been stated. For your information, the Wichita City Council has adopted a policy for all city zoning items. A copy of this policy is available from the planning staff. The City Council relies on a written record of the Planning Commission hearings and does not conduct its own additional public hearings on these items. The decision of the BZA is final. Any appeal of a decision of the BZA is to district court.
Thank you, Paul. First up, we have the approval of our minutes from the meeting on February 4th. And I show that Nix and Fox were absent.
Move to approve.
This is Joe. I move for approval.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Joe Johnson, and the second was Terrell.
Duel.
Bob Dewell.
Oh, Bob Dewell, okay. So, yeah, motion by Joe Johnson, second by Bob Dewell. Mr. Foster, did you have comments?
Just a few corrections I'll pass on to staff, but one I noted was 4 references to the Mitch McConnell floodway.
Oh.
We'll get that one checked out.
Yeah, I think that it's probably, yeah, we don't have any turtles around here, so. So it's been moved and seconded with the corrections that Mr. Foster has. Any further discussions or questions on the motion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, nay. And we have 2 abstentions, so the vote was 9,
11.
10, 11 to 11:02. Okay. Okay, well, moving on to our subdivision committee recommendations. First up, we have sub 2021-0002, final plat of Ysidro, 5th edition. Is there anyone on the commission that would like to hear this case?
Mr. Chairman, I did have a staff question on that item.
Okay. Do we have anyone at Century 2 that would like to hear this case?
There's no one here at Century 2 to speak on this case.
Okay, is there anyone virtually that would like to hear this case? One-step final plat for Ysidro 5th.
JD Johnson.
You would like to hear this case? Okay, all right, gotcha. All right, we'll go ahead and take that staff question before we move on.
Neil, we had gotten an email related to Evergy and the easement along the south there. And I can't recall the wording exactly, but I believe it was that Evergy would need to obtain an easement. My question is, shouldn't they just be granted that easement if they choose that they need it? Should they need to go through a process of having to obtain it? It seems a little more difficult to me for them versus just it would be granted should they determine that they needed it.
Yeah, I was informed this morning they are not 100% sure that easement will be needed, but if it would be, they would work something out in the future where it would be established by separate instrument.
Well, if they're comfortable with that language, I'm fine with it,
They were
so,
fine with it, yes.
okay, thank you.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman, I move we accept that item by consent.
Second.
it's been moved and seconded, moved by Mr. Warren, seconded by Mr. McKay. Are there any questions on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, nay. Motion carries 13-0. Paul, we're having a little difficult, I'm having a little difficulty hearing up here. I know we've had some feedback issues, so thank you. Moving on to the vacation items, we have vacation 2021 0001. It's a vacation of 10-foot utility easement at 4124 South Gilda. Do we have anybody on the commission that would like to hear this case?
This Commissioner Josh. I have a staff question, but I'll wait until after to see if there's any opposition against it.
Okay, thank you. Do we have anyone at Century 2 that would like to hear this case?
Mr. Chairman, there's no one here at Century 2 to speak on this case.
Thank you, Mary. Is there anyone virtually that would like to hear this case? Hearing none. If we could have the staff question, Josh?
That was my question. Is I was just going to ask staff if there was any opposition to this, any letters or phone calls received to the office.
No, and the issue with Evergy actually isn't part of this utility easement. It is just there to help document the file for building permit purposes.
Thank you. Appreciate. No other further questions. Thank you.
All right, moving on to vacation 2021-002. It's a vacation of a utility easement by separate instrument located at 1821 North Webb Road. Is there anyone on the commission that would like to hear this case? Hearing none, is there anyone at Century 2 that would like to hear this case?
Mr. Chairman, there's no one here to speak on this case.
Thank you, Mary. Is there anyone virtually that would like to hear this case? Located at 1821 North Webb Road. Hearing none, we'll take this one on consent. Next case, Vacation 2021-003. It's a vacation, vacating a portion of access control on Broadway Avenue, located approximately at 11,500 North Broadway. Is there anyone on this, on the commission that would like to hear this case? Hearing none. Is there anyone at Century 2 that would like to hear this case?
Mr. Chairman, there's no one here asking to speak on this case.
Thank you. Is there anyone virtually that would like to hear this case? Hearing none, we'll take this one on consent.
Chairman, I move to approve agenda items 3.1, 3.2, and 3.3.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Warren, second by Mr. Bill Johnson, to approve the vacation cases. Any questions on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to our public hearing cases. We have a PUD 2020 number 14, city zone change from SF5 PUD to create Falcon Falls PUD number 82, located approximately Hillside and 45th Street North. Is there anyone on the commission that would like to hear this case? We will hear this case. Mr. Hartman. Moving on to the next zoning case, it's 2020-053. County zone change from rural residential to general commercial, located at 63rd Street South and South Hydraulic. We will hear this case because we have received some letters on this, and it's come to my attention that there are people that will want to hear this, so we will hear this case. Item 4.3 has been deferred. Item condition 2021-02, a conditional use for a drinking establishment at 1001 West Douglas. Is there anyone on the commission that would like to hear this case?
Just a staff question at the end.
Okay. Is there anyone at Century 2 that would like to hear this case?
Mr. Chairman, there's no one here to speak on this case.
Thank you. Is there anyone virtually that would like to hear this case? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and take that staff question.
Question for staff, just check to see if anybody called in or emailed in opposition of this.
No, I have not received any correspondence for opposition. I did receive one phone call, actually a phone call email combination. They did both in support of it. Somebody who lives on the second floor in one of the shops in Delana was actually very excited about the opportunity.
Okay.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Moving on to the next case, it'd be conditional use 2021-0003, located at 605 North McLean. Is there anyone on the commission that would like to hear this case?
Mr. Chairman, I do have a staff question.
Okay. Is there anyone at Century 2 that would like to hear this case?
Mr. Chairman, there's no one here asking to speak on this case.
Thank you. Is there anyone virtually that would like to hear this case? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and take that staff question.
Kathy, I just wanted to confirm the request is for a personal improvement service, and the definition for personal care service specifically calls out beauty and barber shops. Is the request for a personal care service?
Yes, it is, and it requires the conditional use. So if I must have made an error in that because it was to allow for massage therapy.
Oh, so it includes the massage therapy, then you'd have to go for the personal
Right.
improvement service.
Right.
Okay, so if you'll just clean up that language.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to Zone 2021-001. It's a city zone change, limited industrial to general commercial, located at 803 East 17th. And I believe we will be hearing this case because the recommendation was to deny.
Chairman, I move to approve by consent agenda items 4.4 and 4.5.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve 4.4 and 4.5. Are there any questions on the motion? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and vote on that motion. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
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 Chairman, one quick clarification. Who was the second on that one, just for our notes?
Oh, I'm sorry, it was
Mr. Hart.
Mr. Hartman.
Oh, thank you very much.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously. At this point, we will recess the Planning Commission meeting and open our Board of Zoning Appeals meeting. First on our agenda is the approval of minutes from the January 21st meeting. And I show McKay, Foster, and Gross absent.
Move to approve?
Been moved by Ms. Miles to approve, second by Ms. Fox. Are there any questions or comments? And Mr. Foster, yes?
Just a few corrections passed along.
Okay, thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion or questions on the motion? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, nay. Motion carries
11:02.
11:02, yeah, because Gross isn't here. Thank you for the math, that's tough.
It is.
Moving on, the first one, BZA 2021-1 has been deferred. So we'll move on to the next case, which is BZA 2021-002. It's a city variance for parking spaces located at 2820 South Hoover Road. And I show Mr. Bill Johnson will be abstaining on this.
Mr. Chairman, when we have a chance, we have a clarification on the staff report as well.
Okay, all right. We'll see if we have to discuss it, and I'll call on you for the correction on the staff report. Is there anyone on the commission that would like to hear this case? No one? Is there anyone at Century 2 that would like to hear this case?
Mr. Chairman, there's no one here asking to speak on this case.
Thank you. And is there anyone virtually that would like to hear this case? Hearing none, and if we could have that update on this, please?
Kathy Morgan, planning staff, if you will look at your staff report, under the conditions that this is be approved, item number 3, the variance shall apply only to the reduction in parking spaces from 258 to 139. Any future expansion, and then insert this, or change of use of the facility will require a separate zoning action.
Okay, thank you. So they will have to come back if they want to expand or there's a change of use for the
Yes,
building
sir.
itself, okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Kathy, got a question.
Mr. Blick?
Did you receive any opposition on this by email or phone call from the
None.
office?
None, either one.
Thank you so much for your time. Apologize you had to go back up.
Okay. We'll take that one on consent. So next up, we have BZA 2021 number 3, city variance to allow a 60-foot tall sign located at 3905 North Hydraulic. Is there anyone on the commission that would like to hear this case? Seeing none, is there anyone at Century 2 that would like to hear this case?
Mr. Chairman, there's no one here to speak on this case.
Thank you. And is there anyone virtually that would like to hear this case? Hearing no one, we'll take that one on consent. Moving on to BZA 2021 number 4. City variance to allow 300 square foot sign on property located at 12,098 East Kellogg. Is there anyone on the commission that would like to hear this case? Seeing no one, is there anyone at Century 2 that would like to hear this case?
Mr. Chairman, there's no one here asking to speak on this case.
Thank you. And is there anyone virtually that would like to hear this case? Hearing none, we'll take this one on consent also.
Chairman Green, I'd like to make a motion to approve BZA 0002 0003 0004.
Second.
Do I have a
Yeah, that was separate.
second? I have a motion by Mr. Blick to approve the zoning cases, second by Mr. Foster. All those are there any questions on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
I'll have to show that I didn't vote on two.
okay, all right. So the motion, should we take a separate vote? Yeah,
A
okay.
separate vote would probably be cleanest.
Yep, okay. So we could have a motion for BZA 2021-02.
So move to approve BZA 2021-02.
Thank you.
Second.
Second by
Joe Johnson.
John, okay. Any questions or concerns on that one? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. And all those abstaining?
Aye.
That motion carries 1201. Zoning BZA cases 2021-3 and 2021-4. I'll move that we approve those.
So moved.
Second.
So it was moved by Mr. Johnson, second by Mr. Blick. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously. We will now adjourn the BZA meeting and open back up the Planning Commission. And the first item on the agenda is item 4.1.
Yes, good afternoon, Planning Commission. Philip Ziebenbergen with planning staff. PUD 2020-14 is a zone change request from single-family residential SF5 to PUD planned unit development to create the Falcon Falls Edition planned unit development number 82. The property is located north of East 45th Street North and west of North Hillside. You can see on the map here, it's right at the interchange of where 45th and Hillside and K254 is located. You can see on this map, inside the Falcon Falls neighborhood, it encompasses about 93 lots in the dark outlined areas within that neighborhood. Those are the 93 lots that this is affecting. As we have seen with two other proposals in the last month, this is a J. Russell project where he is looking to create this PUD in order to permit accessory apartments by right in addition to one non-resident employee for a home occupation. As we have heard before, and I'll go through it again for the sake of the record and for those who are listening online, the accessory apartments will have to adhere to the supplemental use regulations in the zoning code, which permit only one accessory apartment per lot. The accessory apartment has to stay under common ownership with the main lot owner. The apartment has to be compatible with the look and feel and character of the neighborhood, so it doesn't have to be matchy-matchy to the house. But it cannot stand out as something completely obtrusive. It has to share similar architectural features as to blend in with the neighborhood. The common ownership means you cannot set up some sort of condominium situation where you have multiple owners of parcel within one parcel. And finally, the water and the sewer service provided to the accessory apartment has to stay under the same account. All other utilities such as electrical, telephone, TV, things of that nature can be separate if they want to, but the public utilities such as water and sewer have to remain under the same account as the main dwelling. Further discussion with the accessory apartments, the purpose behind this, or at least the stated purpose behind this from the applicant, is to use it as a marketing tool in order to potentially set his development apart to attract individuals to purchase these lots to build these homes. All of these lots are still under the ownership of Mr. Russell, the developer, and that is why he's able to apply this zoning on all of these lots versus the other lots that have already been sold off and homes already built within the area. His desire is to provide a couple options. Number one is he would make a floor plan available where as they're calling it, casita, is included in the floor plan of the home. It would be somewhere between the garage and the main dwelling, so you would have more of a courtyard situation. But from the exterior of the home, you would probably not even realize there's an accessory apartment inside. You would basically have two dwellings within one structure. Another option that these individuals would have, whether they built it now or built it later, would be potentially having an accessory structure in the backyard where the apartment would be located. Any accessory structure has to follow the guidelines or the regulations within the zoning code, meeting the setback requirements and all of that nature related to accessory structures. There are size and height requirements related to accessory structures in relation to the principal structure. So all of that is applying in this case. Nothing is different about that. Literally, this PUD is only saying they're still restricting it to SF5 uses. They just want the accessory apartment to be able to be done by right versus conditional use. As it is currently zoned as SF5, and any of the lots remaining in Falcon Falls that are zoned SF5 right now, they can apply for conditional use for an accessory apartment. It is something that is permitted by conditional use in the zoning classification. Mr. Russell is basically wanting to do this public hearing legwork ahead of time and provide it as an option for any future lot or home buyers in this development. It does not mean he is going to be building spec homes with accessory apartments already built on all 93 lots. It is just an option for future home buyers if they choose to do so. Related to the one non-resident employee for home occupations, this is separate from the accessory apartment. You would not need the accessory apartment in order to have a home occupation. All the standard home occupation rules and regulations stated in the zoning code that are allowed in SF5 still apply. So you can't be having home occupations that are not already permitted within SF5. And it's important to note that if you have a home occupation license is required with the city. So examples of home occupations are office work. You could do a daycare, things of that nature. You could have a barber shop, a beauty salon. In SF5 right now, it does not allow any non-resident employees to be part of a home occupation. So if you have a daycare, it is understood that you live in the home and you provide the service. You do not have somebody come from outside of your house to come help you with your business. This would permit, as said before, one non-resident employee, so somebody who does not live with you, to come and work with you in your home if you have a home business. I believe Mr. Russell's intention with this is, given the environment we're living in now, or potentially a new normal where there's potentially more people working from home, individuals needing to homeschool their children, depending on if they're on a remote day or not, potentially a college kid who had to move back home because his college is online and they don't have dorm space, or they don't want to be living in the dorms anymore. Or even further, anybody who wants to take care of an aging parent who's in a nursing facility that might be on lockdown. This could give them that extra space. The intent of this is these are all functions that could be done in the existing home right now, but the idea is then giving people some extra space to do that, something where they can walk across the courtyard and kind of be a separate space than the house, just to provide some of that separation. And the agent for the applicant can elaborate on those ideas even further if they choose. So the intent with the home occupation would be, say you are now working from home, or you have your home, or you choose to now have a home business in the world we're working in. You could have an administrative assistant or a colleague come in office with you in your home as well, and then that would be permitted by right in the PUD, as opposed to the regulations in SF5, which it would not. Again, the home occupation does not have to be in the accessory apartment. It could be in a single-family home that is built without one in the PUD. They could have the accessory apartment to office out of. They do not have to have one. The surrounding location, as you can see on the zoning map, all the properties, at least in Falcon Falls, are zoned single-family SF5. The majority of these lots are built with homes already that are not within the PUD. As we'll see when I go through those site pictures, especially when you're coming off of 45th there on the south side of the picture, when you go straight north, the majority of those lots that are actually the bulk of this PUD, those roads don't actually even exist yet. So this is a undeveloped portion, or potentially a next phase within Falcon Falls. The further north and the further east you get is basically where Falcon Falls started. And those homes, the bulk of the homes that are constructed are in the north and the eastern part of the development. Property to the west is in Sedgwick County. It's zoned SF20. You can see they're right at the corner where the highway traverses across 45th and Hillside. You have some limited commercial that's in the red, and the bright yellow is TF3, two-family and or duplexes. The case history behind this is in 2005, the Falcon Falls 2nd edition and the Falcon Falls 3rd edition were recorded with the Register of Deeds. West 45th Street is a paved 2-lane arterial street. It does widen to 4 lanes with turn lanes when you get to the intersection with Hillside. It does not have any sidewalks. All of the roads within the development are paved local streets that are 2-way, and they have sidewalks on one side of the street for collector streets only per the subdivision regulations. The comprehensive plan, if we want to go to the land use map, there we go, identifies this area for new residential. The category describes areas of land that are likely to be developed or redeveloped by 2035 with uses predominantly found in a residential category. The residential category defined in the comprehensive plan affords a range of options for densities that include single-family residential, even 2-family residential. So like the addition of an accessory apartment is not out of the scope of the comprehensive plan for this area. Staff is recommending approval of this. There were some conditions of approval related to just cleaning up the language of the PUD document, providing a correct legal description on the face of it, and then recording a certificate with the Register of Deeds saying there are specific conditions of development on this property. As we've discussed in the past with the two other developments that Mr. Russell is looking to do this on, that title work or that certificate will show up on future title work. So anytime, so you have the initial people buying the lot, they potentially develop it without an accessory apartment. If they were to sell their home, the title work done at the sale of the home would be providing future homeowners the information to say that on this property, this is what it's owned and this is what is allowed. Not only for them, but for also to know that their neighbor could do it as well. Because that was a concern that came up in previous planning commission meetings of, it's one thing for a property owner to know they can do it, but another thing for their neighbor who may not understand that that's not a permitted use in the neighborhood. And then providing planning staff with the 4 copies of the final PUD for review and approval. The factors of the decision, as we talked about before, the zoning surrounding it is single-family SF5, predominantly with some TF3 zoning nearby, as well as SF20 to the west. This is something that is permitted within SF5 zoning by conditional use, and so the character of the neighborhood is conducive for something like this. One thing I failed to mention that, again, coming through the history of these things, if you were to have all 93 lots do this, and you technically, that'd be 186 technical dwelling units in there, we reviewed from the platting side of things that with that level of density, if that were to happen, kind of worst case scenario, that does fit within the fire code for the subdivision. This subdivision versus the last several actually have multiple points of access, which is different and differentiates this one. So there are multiple points of access from the fire department. So even if all 93 were to develop an accessory apartment, which staff doesn't necessarily foresee happening, it is still within the fire code as related to the subdivision regulations. The suitability of the subject property for the uses for which it has been restricted, all of these lots could support a single-family home without an accessory apartment. How removing these restrictions could detrimentally affect nearby properties. It is unlikely that all of these lots would actually develop an accessory apartment or all of these future home buyers to have a home occupation, let alone an additional worker with them. These are options for future home buyers. And as we've stated in the past, planning staff has received maybe anywhere from 3 to 5 applications a year for city and county for individuals seeking conditional uses for accessory apartments. So we're not necessarily seeing a flood of things. It is something that is not necessarily uncommon that we're seeing. But the idea, when you just think of it statistically for all 93 lots to take advantage of both of these options or either one, you might see some of it, maybe 1 in 10, 1 in 30. But it's unlikely that every single lot will take advantage of it. So the anticipated negative impacts on surrounding properties is very little. And the governing text within the PUD, relating it back to the regulations of the Unified Zoning Code, are there to protect the surrounding properties, as they would if it were a single-family SF5 neighborhood and somebody came in for a conditional use to do these. The individual properties have been vacant for a while. Obviously, it's in the process of being developed, and they should be developed fairly soon. And we've already talked about the conformance to the comprehensive plan. There are no anticipated significant adverse impacts to community facilities. Staff has received quite a bit of phone calls and emails from individuals within Falcon Falls with concerns and opposition to this case. This case was heard at District 1 Advisory Board. You actually have the staff memo from that advisory board meeting at your desk for your review. It was heard on February 1st. There were individuals who spoke in opposition at the District 1 Advisory Board meeting. Several concerns were potential densification of the neighborhood in this area, concerns that this was not exactly what it was designed for. There were concerns of potential traffic increase, both within the neighborhood as well as on 45th Street, being that where the entrance is to Falcon Falls is a 2-lane road. And there are more that you can read within there, but that's just kind of been the general theme is there was some confusion as to what accessory apartments meant, clearing up some of the misconception that it's not providing apartment complexes. This is an individual apartment per lot, and it would be something that would be potentially even just inside the single-family home. Another common concern with this on whether or not these units can be rented. Again, as a reminder, the Unified Zoning Code does not regulate rentals versus owner-occupied. We did hear from the agent for the applicant that the covenants within Falcon Falls do not permit rentals. And so that is up to something for the HOA to govern. If individuals find that, if this were approved and these things do happen, if individuals were to suspect that one of them is being rented out, that is a private matter within their restrictive covenants, and it is dealt with on the HOA level, not the Unified Zoning Code level. All in all, the DAB recommended approval of this with an 8-1 vote. And I think that covers it. We can go through some site pictures, won't take very long if you want to go over to those slides. So this is looking north about midway through. The undeveloped land you see in the front would be some of the lots that could be developed. Next picture. This is looking to the east, again, at some of the developed areas of the homes that you see there. Obviously, those are not affected because they're currently developed. Something I failed to mention, seeing these garages made me think about it. Parking has been a concern. A single-family dwelling, per the zoning code, only requires 1 space of parking per dwelling unit. And so with these having 2 to 3 car garages, they have 3 spaces in the garage and probably 3 spaces in their driveway, so that's 6. So technically, these lots are providing over and above what is required. And when you think about a potential accessory apartment or 1 non-resident employee, you're looking at potentially only 1 or 2 cars, and so parking should not necessarily be an issue. You can keep going through the pictures. Now just looking south, again, the undeveloped land would be where some of these lots would be next to the single-family homes that are already built. I think there's only one final picture. Looking to the west, perhaps, there it is. And so again, you can see that it is very actively in the development process with new single-family homes. And Mr. Russell looks to complete this neighborhood, just providing some additional options or additional amenities to some of the lots that have been undeveloped. With that, I can stand for any questions you have for staff.
Do you have any questions of Philip?
I've got one.
Yes, Mr. Warren.
Okay, go ahead. Philip, assuming this would be passed today, the remaining lots, because they're not included in this, would have to go through a conditional use hearing. If this were approved, would there be a way to streamline that for somebody if an existing owner in that area wanted to put in an accessory apartment or something along this line that would be in line with all of these rules? Is it easier now that
I think of 2 options, and I think Scott's conferring with JR, and I'll throw it out there for him to, number one, if they went through a straight conditional use process, they would have to do the public hearing process just like we're doing now. Obviously, it'd be a little bit easier because if you're already permitting it in one area, there's probably not going to be opposition to the rest. One thing I would thought of and what I would want JR to comment on is whether or not the PUD could just be amended to include other lots. Either way, you're going through a public hearing process, whether they get included in the PUD zoning or whether or not they just get a conditional use. Either way, it's the same public hearing process. The difference being a conditional use, if not protested, does not have to go to city council for final approval, which means they could be done and on their way a little bit sooner.
from a staff standpoint, if somebody came in and they said, I want to duplicate all of the rules and regulations that were there, that would make it a little at least easier to say, we're going to copy what's already been done in the subdivision.
The fact that this would already be in the neighborhood, it would make the decision fairly easy to allow it somewhere else because it's already would be permitted by this PUD.
Thank you.
JR, did did you have a comment?
Mr. Chairman, this is Joe.
Metropolitan Planning for the record. I don't really, I think Philip summed it up pretty well. I really don't.
Okay.
Unless there's some further questions, no.
Okay. Mr. Hartman, and then we'll go with Joe Johnson. Mr. Hartman?
Do you know how many lots are in that total lots are in that Falcon development?
I apologize, I do not. Just by looking at it and looking back on the other applications we have processed in those subdivisions, you're probably looking at close to 300 would be a
That'd be my
guess.
It looks like there's 90.
There's 93
93
lots
in this, and
in
looks like there's at
consideration,
least-
and especially when you're looking at the very north end that is the most developed, I would put it anywhere between 250 and 300 lots.
Looks like there's like at least 2 times more lots.
Yes.
Mr. Rose may have an idea too.
He may have an idea, yes. Out of the 3 applications that Mr. Russell has been doing, this one has the fewest number of lots that have been included in a PUD. In
And the best
comparison to the
access.
rest of, in comparison to the rest of the lots available in the subdivision.
Along with the best access.
And Mr. Johnson. has an
Mr.
issue.
Mr. Joe Johnson.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to congratulate Philip on a very thorough presentation. Whether I'm for it or against it doesn't matter. It's just I wanted to compliment him on the way he presented it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Joe. Ms. Fox, did you have a question?
Yes, the lot sizes in this area seem to me to be significantly smaller than the lot sizes in the other 2 developments, as well as the percent that's already built out, which makes it easier to see the lot size when all the houses are there. There are rules about the density of these residential neighborhoods, correct?
What governs it is, single-family SF5 has a minimum lot size requirement, and that is 5,000 square feet or 6,000 square feet. There's two within there, and there's little nuances in there, but I believe that these lots are well above the minimum lot size.
0.17 acres is what I see as the smallest lot size in that area, so that would be well above the
Yes.
5,000 to 6,000 square feet.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
And again, if they would be doing a detached apartment and accessory structure, that would have to be built in the backyard, subject to accessory structure setbacks.
Okay. Any other questions for Philip from the commission? Seeing none, if we have the agent or applicant, and you have 10 minutes.
Chris Rose with Boffin Company, agent for the applicant. The applicant agrees with staff comments, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have. As far as the total lot count for all of Falcon Falls, it's probably somewhere between the 250 to 300, like Philip said. I don't have an exact lot count. It was done several years ago. So, but I'll be happy to answer any questions you guys might have.
Any questions for Mr. Rose? Hearing none? Thanks, Chris. Hang loose. Do we have anyone at Century 2 that would like to address us on this case?
Mr. Chairman, there's no comment from Century 2.
Okay. Is there anyone virtually that would like to hear this case? Please state your name, your address, and you have 2 minutes.
Brian Stewart, 2637 East Kite Court. Can you hear me?
Yes, and you have 3 minutes. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mr. McCure.
Okay, so the number of, I was president of that HOA, so I have a long background. I've been there for 14 years. That HOA has 475 lots. Okay, that's, your estimates are way under. So what that does is by doing this, by adding the potential to this, it increases the parking situation, that it exacerbates. There's already cars parked on the streets. Okay, there's insufficient parking, and you're talking about adding more. There's also you're going to add surface area, so there's going to be less runoff. in a rain event a few years ago, we had water come within several feet of a number of the homes in this area. So you're looking at another Cowskin Creek situation if you keep increasing surface area in this area. So that's another reason not to do it. Rentals are an issue. I can tell you that a rental, these will be rented. People will try to rent them, and an HOA's worst nightmare is dealing with rentals and enforcement. It's almost impossible to get enforcement to HOA rules, so that people will break those rules. So there are a number of issues. There is not adequate access for that number of homes. You say there's 3. In effect, there's really only 2. There's 45th and there's Hillside. And there were duplexes put in, and those are both 2 lanes, open drainage. There's already issues with cars and traffic on those roads. So that's insufficient roadway to deal with an increased number. And it's already difficult, and we don't even have the 475 homes in there. So I'm opposing it, and I'll be glad to send a letter, and I'll be glad to send photographs. And I've talked to multiple neighbors, and they're opposed to this. I like the idea, but somewhere else. We've been in this for almost 15 years, so the idea is great. Just do it somewhere else and have it in the planning at the beginning, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the speaker?
Yes, I have a question. My name is Jewel Moncure.
I'm sorry.
I live at 2410.
Hang on just a minute, please. Hang on just a minute, Jewel. I was asking if there are any commissioners that had a question of the speaker, and I heard none. So it's now your turn, Jewel, and if you could give your address also, I'd appreciate that. And Jewel Moncure, it's your turn. Unmute your mic.
Mr. Chairman, we're going to try and see if we can help her out with that. Let's
Okay.
Yes. Okay, I'm sorry. I don't deal with technology a lot, so
That's fine.
I have a little difficulty with that.
No problem.
Okay, again. All right, am I ready?
Yes, you are. It's your turn. You're up for 3 minutes.
Okay, I live at 2410 East Thunder Street. And one question is, when do they plan to complete the 93? Is there a date that we're going to be completing those 93 lots? Is there a date on the calendar when this is supposed to happen? By when?
We'll let the agent respond to these questions once we have all of them for him. So if you have any other questions or comments, now would be the time. And then when public comment is over, then the agent will address those comments and questions.
Oh, okay. And my other question is, I know that Jay Russell had 2 other areas that he had applied for the same PUD, and I wanted to know what is the status of those at this time? Have they been approved, or where are we with those?
Well, I think that we can probably answer that one, Philip. He has applied for 2, and the Planning Commission has approved those 2.
Right, and they are now slated for going to City Council for final approval. That has not happened. Well, one of them did. The very first one, PUD number 2020-12, which is the one on West Maple, was approved by City Council. PUD 13, which is the Rocky Ford edition on South Rock and 33rd Street, is slated to go to City Council shortly.
Okay. Did you hear that, Ms. Moncure?
Yes, I heard it.
Okay.
And my last question is, I know the process, when will the residents know when it has been approved and the outcome of this, and how long will that take before we'll be notified? After, I know we have 2 weeks to get the opposition in, then when will we know, and how will you all let us know what the outcome of this PUD?
Yeah, so anybody who speaks today, this is why we ask for your address. You will receive a follow-up letter from the Planning Commission that will get sent out tomorrow. So we'll receive it in the mail next week, notifying you of the decision of the Planning Commission. It also includes the information related to the protest period, of when that protest period ends, as well as what date this case is scheduled to go before City Council. After the date of City Council, you receive another follow-up letter informing you of the decision of City Councils. Again, that will be by mail. I will be sending those letters out within a day or so after the City Council meeting. Anybody who speaks at the Planning Commission here today, when we get their name and address, or anybody who wishes to email me and get their name on the list if they were not available to speak today, anybody who wants the letter, if I get their information, I will send them a follow-up letter with the decision of the Planning Commission as well as the City Council decision after the City Council date. The City Council meeting, there's a 2-week protest period from today. City Council is anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks after the protest period, so we're looking at mid to late March. I apologize, I don't have that date off the top of my head. So you'll know somewhere between probably about late March about the decision from the City Council related to this case.
All right, thank you. That's all.
Thank you. Is there anyone else virtually that would like to address the commission on this case?
I would if I could, please.
Okay.
My name is Kaylin Day.
Go ahead.
On 47.
Kaylin, you're breaking up.
Okay, can you hear me now?
I believe so, yes. Name and address.
Okay, did you get my name and my address?
No, that's why I said we couldn't hear you. You were breaking up. So if we could get your name and address again, I'd appreciate that.
Okay. Kaylin Dane, 4723 North Hobby Street.
Okay. And you have 3 minutes.
Okay, so mine was just more of a question because I'm just trying to understand the project more. I live on one of the ponds, and I know in the covenants when we moved in, like, we aren't allowed to put like sheds on our lot, whereas other people can that don't live on the water because of the drainage. And I don't know how this kind of goes along with what the first guy was saying about the drainage. Is that going to be a problem with potentially having these apartments in like the backyards on a lot, that's on the water?
Okay, we will have the agent address that. I know he's taking copious notes on this. So,
okay.
Did you have any other questions or comments?
Yeah. Also, a couple of my neighbors, they wanted to make sure that when they say accessory dwelling unit, that this is not in fact a open door to a builder rolling through and planting a duplex of any sort. It's totally different. The single family unit, right? Only with the apartment, not allowing for duplexes to be plopped here and there and everywhere, correct?
That is correct. That would take a separate zoning action.
Okay, because I know a lot of the neighbors were really concerned about that, just with the word accessory dwelling, that they're like, no, we're going to have duplexes in here. So, and also you said we weren't allowed to have rentals in Falcon Falls already, but I know people do that. Like, there's people on my street, in fact, that have rented out their homes currently and since I've lived here. So I don't really know how that would work with the apartment thing, but mostly mine's a question with the drainage, and then to clarify that that no one can build an actual duplex. So, but yeah, the drainage one is a concern, just because I know we're not allowed to build any sheds or anything at all on the water. In fact, we had to have wrought iron fencing and stuff like that. So that would be a solid question, I guess, to pass along.
Okay.
So that's all I have.
Thank you. Do we have any questions?
Thank you.
Do we have any questions for the speaker? Hearing none, is there anyone else virtually that would like to address the commission on this case?
Yes, I would.
Okay, name and address, please. Patty?
Yes, hi, thank you. My name is Patty Bonsack. I live at 4907 North Marble Falls Street. the question I have is that what prevents, I guess, and forgive me if I'm not using the right terminology, this is very new to me and I'm trying to figure it out. I bought my house here, it's been less than 2 years. When I bought here and bought into this neighborhood, I understood that this was going to be single family homes. From the pictures that is being presented, it appears that right behind my house or within a few feet, it's going to be a casita. Generally, if it was a single family home on the other side of that fence, there would be a backyard separating us from the actual structure of the home. So now I understand there's going to be a casita back there. So that's one of the reasons I just oppose it. I understand the concept of it, but it becomes problematic is how do you limit somebody, you say, it sounds great to say my mother-in-law is going to live there or maybe a disabled son's going to live there, and those things all sound great, but how do you limit somebody from just having one person living in this small unit? What's the difference of somebody renting out to a couple, a family? Then we're talking about it's actually an apartment, a rental unit. So I'm just curious on how you limit that.
Okay. That's the gist of your question and concerns?
Yeah, just, that's the gist of it, because when I bought my house here, I didn't realize that there was going to be, an apartment type structure in the back of my yard. And you're telling me that I can't go do that. Say I wanted to expand on my property, I then have to go through and get approval. You're saying it may be easier for me in the future, but it just doesn't seem very fair.
Okay, I think Mr. Wadle, the director of the planning department, has a response for you.
Sure, I think that's a two-part. I think one is, number one, what regulations are in place as far as the land use and development of structures on the properties. The second part is about the rentals. I think the agent would be best qualified to talk about the use of the properties for rentals because of the private covenants that would guide that or govern that. As far as the use, I think Philip can provide some explanation about what structures are allowed and what configuration on the properties due to the zoning.
So I'll go ahead and cover, this is Philip, I'll cover the land use aspect of it. It's not to say that if an accessory apartment is constructed that it would be in the backyard. I know that Mr. Russell is providing a floor plan option where it'd be developed as part of the single family home. So as you look at it from the street, you see what looks like a single family home. If it was built in the backyard, again, as I mentioned in the staff report, there are size and height restrictions related to what an accessory structure can be in the backyard, and it would have to adhere to the setbacks. And so there are rules and regulations in place to ensure that there is adequate spacing between structures, not only on the principal lot between the accessory structure and the home, but also between accessory structures and other buildings on adjacent lots.
Okay.
Do we know what those are? Is that readily available to know what the size restrictions are and, how far that has to be from my back fence?
Yes.
I know it's going to look like a normal single family home from the front, but I'm looking in the backyard.
Right, if it was an accessory structure, depends on how far back it's placed. It can be, the setbacks say that it's 5 feet from the back property line, but typically there is a sewer easement or along the rear line. It kind of depends on where the lot is and how the public utilities are provided to that lot. Typically, if there's a sewer easement in the back, you're looking at anywhere from 8 to 10 feet off the fence, depending on how big that sewer easement is. And that's for an accessory structure, whether it's an apartment or a shed. That's not to say that all of these would be, if they're allowed to have sheds in their backyards, it sounds like the covenants kind of dictate where they can't do that, depending on if they're on the water or not. Whether they built an apartment in their backyard or if they built a shed, that is dictated on either a 5-foot setback from the zoning code standpoint, or if there's a utility easement in the backyard. Usually those are 8 to 10 feet off the rear property line, depending on where the sewer line is located.
Okay.
So what you're saying is they could build their part of the casita 10 feet from the easement or whatever, which is probably, I don't know what it is, probably 4 to 6 feet. I'm looking at it right now. so they can build, that edge of the casita can come within 10 feet of that easement?
10 feet, well, the easement is usually 10 feet off the property line, so the closest the building could be to the rear property line would be 10 feet.
Yeah, that's pretty close, and that's not, you know, when I bought this house and paid money for it and moved here, I didn't think that there was gonna be, I knew there was gonna be a house someday in back of me. I didn't realize it was gonna be 10 feet from my property
And it's not to
line.
say that every single lot in this development is going to do that. And again, an accessory structure could be a shed and not an accessory apartment. So somebody could come in and put a shed just as far back and it's not even an apartment. Those are the regulations for accessory structures, whether they have a dwelling in them or not.
Right, but we're here approving whether or not they can build a casita and hoping that somebody's gonna live there, like a mother-in-law apartment. I thought that's what we're here for. So to me, that says that there's gonna be some type of structure, could be 10 feet from my property line or whatever, and somebody's gonna be actually living in there. And there's, you know, and I know you'll speak to this, the agent will speak to it later. We don't know how many people are gonna be restricted to living there. You know, earlier too, there was one comment that there's 1.7 acres for each of these lots. I don't believe that's true.
No, it was 0.17 acres.
Yeah, 0.17 acres. So,
Okay.
Yeah, Ms.
Okay,
Stevens.
I misunderstood then, sorry about that.
Ms. Bontic, if, I think that we've attempted to respond to your concerns. If you have more questions or issues, you could call the planning office and ask for Philip, and he would be more than happy to continue on with this
Okay.
conversation. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other people virtually that would like to address the commission on this case that has new information?
I would.
Okay, if we could have your name and address, and you have 3 minutes, and if you could limit your comments to those that have not already been shared, thank you.
Okay. My name is Jim Williams. I live at 5002 North Marble Falls. I have two comments. One is I am okay with this, but the one thing that was said in this meeting is that the covenants say that we can't have rentals. That is not true. There's nothing in the covenants that cover rentals. In fact, J. Russell has rentals in our neighborhood. I am on the board. I do not represent the board, HOA board, in this meeting, but I am on the board, and we've gone through the covenants, and there is nothing restricting rentals in the covenants.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Are there any questions for the speaker? Okay, thank you very much. Is there anyone else virtually that would like to address the commission on this case? Hearing none.
Hi.
Yes, go ahead. If you could have your name and address, and you have 3 minutes.
Hello?
Then
I'm muted. My name is Andrew Dahl. I live on 2817 East Mantain Court.
Okay, you have 3 minutes, Mr. Dolan?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. You have 3 minutes.
Okay. Thank you. Did want to make a few comments. Yeah, there are definitely rentals in the neighborhood. And I guarantee you anybody buying these houses are going to hear that, oh, I can build an accessory unit in the backyard. The first thing that comes to your mind is, well, this is a way to, be able to generate revenue, right? In fact, I looked up an article on Cake, local news station, called The Beginner's Guide to ADU Housing. 4 of the 5 reasons to consider AUD housing are associated with generating revenue on your property. So I realize that is not the intention of the developer for the properties. Myself and some of the neighbors, we were actually under the impression, based off of the advisory board meeting, that there would not be rentals. So it's very concerning to me to hear that actually these could be rented out. Some of our concerns were, the city can't prevent anybody from renting things out. And we heard from, I think, the old HOA president that it is a difficult thing to deal with as is. So I think there's a lot of questions around there that just make me very uncomfortable, just giving carte blanche access to be able to build these units. I also think that the ability to build the units are going to incentivize people to build smaller houses closer to the road, which is inevitably going to change the look and feel of the neighborhood. And like we just heard from another woman, that nobody bought houses thinking that there were going to be two structures in between them and the next lot line. Let's see, a couple other things that I wanted to talk about. With regard to special assessments, we have, we've already been assessed special assessments, and now our neighbor is going to be able to build two houses on that lot. How are we going to rectify that? Because assessments were made based on a per lot basis, and now you potentially have a revenue generating structure on the lot, potentially, two individual dwellings. Just want to hear a response on, how could that be made fair, both on the new developments that have not been assessed and the current ones that already have.
Sir,
we also had a comment on.
Sir,
sorry, go ahead.
Your time is up. Do you need an additional minute to wrap up your comments?
Yeah, 1 minute. Last comment here. Somebody mentions being on the water would prevent you from building anything in your backyard. It's actually not just on the water, it's any wooded lot, which if you look at the map that was provided, that's most of the housing that's there would be considered a wooded lot. How can I not build? I can't even put up a privacy fence, much less build a shed. And now my neighbor can build a house in their backyard that would obstruct my view. The HOA can prevent me from building in my backyard, but they can't really dictate what Jay or any of the other builders do the way the HOA covenants are set up. Just kind of echoing everybody else's sentiment, it really feels unfair. And, I'd be totally okay if it was one or two lots that were in this proposal, but to just say, hey, everything that's left can follow this, it really does not seem like best interests of the current residents of the neighborhood. Okay. That's it for me.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Do we have any questions for the speaker? Yes, Mr. Foster.
Sir, could you describe a little bit more about the rentals? Are these just simply the single-family homes in their entirety being rented out?
The rentals that I know about, and that's the kind of funny thing, is everybody knows that they're rentals. You can tell they're rentals by looking at them. You see the cars parked on the street. But the ones that I know about are, and I've seen on Craigslist before, are single-family homes that are being rented out. Not like a bedroom or something like that. Obviously, there hasn't been opportunity up until this point.
Yeah, Mr. Foster.
Follow-up question is, have you studied the covenant sufficiently to just confirm that there's nothing in there about limiting or not allowing rentals in the neighborhood?
I don't have them in front of me, but I think we heard from somebody who is a member of the board right before me, so maybe he can answer that question.
Just want to confirm it, that's all.
Okay, any other questions of the speaker? Hearing none, thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else virtually that would like to address the commission on this case? Hearing none, I've got a question.
Can I, this is Brian Stewart. I spoke earlier, but there is nothing in regarding the rental.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Is this a new speaker?
Yes, this is Sabrina Walker. I live at 4702 North.
Okay, okay, Ms. Walker.
47.
Ms. Walker, you're breaking up terribly. We can't understand.
To North. Marble Falls Street.
Yeah, we can't, there's something kind of glitchy about your, we're not able to understand what you're saying, Ms. Walker. I'm sorry, technology is not working very well.
Mr. Chairman, I will try and communicate with her via text through the app and see if we can't get her comments in writing.
Okay, all right. And that was something else that I was wanting to address to staff. We see comments up here popping up occasionally, and I don't know if they're, some are saying that they can't get their mics to work. And I don't know if they're wanting to address this case or if they have other cases that they're wanting to address. Is there some way that we can?
Houses were
Is there some is there some way that we can address these folks if?
Yes, sir. So far, one of the questions has been from an individual indicating that their microphone is not working, and they wanted to comment on the last case on your agenda.
Okay.
The other ones have been, I'll
you
go
first
through
drove into.
the other ones have been questions regarding, okay, the one was about the last case. One had been a question by Ms. Patty Stevens, who had an opportunity to speak.
Okay. Yeah, I think in the future, we probably need to try to keep tabs because we get a little flash and then something,
Yep.
and we might catch it, we might not get exactly what they're trying to do. And I can see Ms. Fox is nodding over there too because she's been noticing that. And so thank you for kind of keeping an eyeball on that. And as far as Ms. Walker is concerned, are you going to text her?
I will. I'll try and reach out to her via the text option, the comments option.
Yeah, because Ms. Walker, we're trying to hear your testimony, but your system just doesn't seem to be communicating well with ours.
I'd like to speak.
Okay, and if we could have your name and address, and you have 3 minutes.
Yeah, my name is David Banowitz. I'm at 5023 North Osprey Circle, and I'll be short. I agree with what Brian Stewart said in his first phone call. I think we're just overdoing it a bit here, making this community much less beautiful and usable. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Benowitz. Do we have any questions of him, of the speaker? Hearing none. Any success, Scott?
Not yet. I sent her a message, and if you're listening, Ms. Walker, you should see it as a red comment box, almost like a cartoon comic box comment at the top. And if you click on that, you'll see where the conversations take place, and you can provide comments. But as of yet, we've not received anything from her.
Okay.
And for the record, I spoke with Ms. Walker yesterday and provided her information how to connect to the meeting. I have her email address. I could possibly have her email me comments as well.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Is there anyone else?
Can you hear me now?
Well, yes, we can. Let's see if we can continue to hear you. Go ahead, Ms. Walker. You have 3 minutes.
I can confirm that her microphone is unmuted at this point.
Yeah, I can see it too. Ms. Walker, are you, well, now you're muted. You're unmuted now. Can you go ahead and speak and we'll see if we can hear you? I think we have no joy there. So I think Philip is planning on communicating with you again and seeing if there's anything different than what we've got. Is there anyone else virtually that would like to address the commission on this item?
Hello, this is Chris Delica, 4711 North Marble Falls.
Okay, Chris.
Can you hear me now?
Chris?
Can you hear me?
Chris, you have the floor.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. I just want to let you know, I've been in the neighborhood 10 years, and I've got renters on both sides of my house, and there's been nothing but problems with the renters for lack of maintenance, the number of cars, vehicles. There's anywhere from 6 to 10 people living in those houses at one time. So I'm opposed to this just for the fact that this will increase the number of renters in the neighborhood and devalue the neighborhood essentially just due to that fact alone, from that lack of maintenance and just pride in ownership in the neighborhood. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Are there any questions for the speaker from the commission? Seeing none. Anyone else virtually that would like to address the commission on this?
Can I ask a question if nobody else has to make a statement?
Have you already addressed the commission?
Yes, this is Brian Stewart, but if I
Okay.
could get a question later, I'd appreciate it.
Okay, you've had your opportunity. We do appreciate your testimony earlier, and we need to move on to see if there's anybody else who has not addressed the commission. And if we have no one else.
Yeah, this is Mark Dolchek, 4947 Marble Falls Court. You know, my main concern, I'm not opposed to the accessory buildings, but I am just similar concerns with rentals, just for record. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Dolachek. Anyone else? Hearing none, we'll bring it back to the agent. Oh, Mr. Foster.
I've written down 2 questions that I've got, but I would like to know Mr. Stewart's question, please.
Thank you. Yeah, it went back to the PUDs for Jay Russell in terms of the other developments that that they applied for this. That in terms of if those have been approved, I would just ask that, you know, if those have been approved, and based on the fact that this allows rentals. Do the others allow rentals? Because a big part of this does hinge on whether or not the developer understands the HOA covenants, that rentals exist, and there have been a number of comments on that. Do they understand their own? Does the developer understand the HOA covenants in these HOAs? Because I don't think he does.
Okay, thank you. We'll have his agent address a list of concerns that have been testified to today. Is there anyone else that has a question or comment from the commission?
I'll wait till the agent speaks.
Okay. If we'll take this back to the agent now. Chris, you have a couple minutes to cover a lot of items, but we'll probably try to ask you a question that will extend your time a little bit. So if you go ahead and
Chris Rose with Hoffman Company, agent for the applicant. First off, let's try to deal with the rental problem, the issue. As far as I know, we were under the impression that it was already in the HOA, but obviously it's not. But the applicant can do a restricted covenant for these lots that are within this PUD that would say that there's no rentals allowed. So I think that would take care of that issue. As far as the HOA and the other communities that he's done this on, I was under the impression that there is no rentals allowed in those. This is a older development, so maybe they have changed the HOA over the years. But the other two projects that we're working on was the same concerns were with rentals. And so they have done something in either the HOA or done a restricted covenant saying that rentals are not allowed. I'm assuming in an HOA, the board, if they don't prefer rentals, I don't know why they can't just go ahead and modify their HOA covenants and not allow rentals. But that's kind of their issue, and that's a private issue. As far as some of these other things, I've never heard of having no sheds in the backyard due to drainage. It's a new one for me. Several of these concerns seem like most of them were about rentals, some about drainage. I don't see any kind of drainage issues, but I just don't see how increasing the square footage of a house a little bit is going to do anything to some drainage. I guess with that, I'll be happy to answer any other questions you guys might have.
Do you have any questions for the agent? Yes, Mr. Warren.
Put some questions in. I don't know if this would be for the agent or for staff. The first one will have to do with drainage. When a subdivision comes in and the county approves a drainage plan that is based on how do they base that in terms of the amount of square footage that can be built on the lot and how that will drain off, and how does this exceed those numbers that were put in place at the time of the original planning?
I unfortunately am not aware of what they look into. That would probably be better for the public works department. Too bad Neil's not here. Neil Strahl with planning staff, who works with the plats, is much more familiar with how the drainage plans may be approved, or Joe Hickel with the Public Works and Utilities Department.
That would be one of the questions that I would have going forward. Does this change the parameters of what was done when this was originally? There's obviously somebody's got a formula on how much drainage is increased by adding driveways and rooftops and so on and so forth, and I'd like to know how this is affected by that.
Mr. Warren, if I could, just off the top of my head, for example, when this was originally platted as a single-family residential neighborhood, there's the opportunity within the zoning code, as zoned as SF5, they could, as long as their covenants allow, which again is a separate thing, but covenants aside, if you were to allow a shed in the backyard, that's an accessory structure like that, obviously has to be taken into account in the drainage plan of rooftop. Like I said, that's not a complete answer. I'm not saying that this is, but understood that this was going to be platted as a single-family neighborhood. It's of the understanding that things allowed within single-family zoning, such as accessory structures like sheds and potentially apartment.
I'll make this real simple. Before I'm going to go forward with this, I would need somebody from the county saying this is not going to create a problem.
Okay.
That's as simple as I can make that issue. I need somebody from the county that understands drainage, says this is not going to be an issue based on the changes coming forward. That would be one. Number two, this would be for the agent or for anybody that can answer this, maybe even our legal staff. If we put a restriction, if there's a restriction by restrictive covenants on rentals, what are the consequences? How do they, it sounds to me like we're dealing with an enforcement issue, and somebody needs to answer that question. Is we can say that we're not going to rent these units, but if somebody chooses to do so in opposition or violation of the homeowners association, what are the consequences for violating the homeowners association? That's my second question. The third one that came up is, are there restrictions in this area for what you can do in your backyard if you have a lot that backs up to water or wooded area? And if so, I think that is a fairness issue on this one, is that if somebody that lives there can't put a shed in his backyard because it backs up to a waterway or a wooded area, then why are we going to allow a change to that, for this? So that's my three issues.
The decision here does not change what the covenants say. And so whatever zoning goes in, if they're backed up on a wooded lot and their covenants say you can't put a structure in your backyard if you're upon a wooded lot, that would affect how, like, they would not be able to put an accessory apartment in their
We can put
backyard.
wording in our PUD that says that they cannot put an additional or accessory apartment if it is in violation of the homeowners association rules and regulations.
I think that, I guess you could, I think that kind of goes without saying that those are the private agreements and private covenants in a neighborhood that go above and beyond what the zoning requirements
I don't want
say.
somebody coming back later and says, well, the planning department approved it, so now therefore I can go ahead and do this because we've approved this on this.
But they should also have the understanding of what their covenants are and whether or not they're breaking what their covenants say.
Thank you.
So this does not automatically say they could put, if their covenants do not allow one in a wooded lot or on a lot backing up to water, this does not automatically allow them to do so. It does not supersede their covenants.
Our zoning may allow it, but their covenants may not.
Correct.
So.
Okay.
And, yes, Mr. McKay.
Based on what Mr. Warren just got through saying, I think Chris has got some, can probably comment on some of this stuff, but if he's saying he's not going to move forward with it until we get some of these answers, Chris, where are you guys at on this?
Mr. Rose?
Well, as far as the drainage, any development in Wichita, I don't know if there's a maximum coverage for a home. So, I mean, any lot in Wichita, I can maximize the floor plan of the lot or of the house to fill up the majority of the lot. So I don't see us adding, a few hundred square feet to these units that is going to create some sort of drainage issue. We're not adding driveways to them. It's not like it's a duplex where we have two 20-foot driveways. We're talking about doing a U-shaped house, at least as far as a casita floor plan that I've seen goes. So we're just creating a U-shaped house with a courtyard and a driveway with a 2 or 3 car garage. So I don't see any kind of drainage issues with doing that. As far as the HOAs go, yeah, I mean, the HOA has the ultimate rights to deny anything. If the HOA does not allow certain things, they should have, if their board can send out a notification, they probably have some sort of an attorney that they have a relationship with that can go and notify these people that they're in violation of the HOA. The HOA board and the members can always adjust those HOA covenants at any time. If they have the support for that, they can change those.
Yeah. I get, Chris, where I'm coming from.
Mr. Chairman, this is Jeff Van Zandt. I wanted to comment. I got Joe Hickel on the line while you guys were talking, and he said, as far as the drainage is concerned, the subdivision has a master drainage plan, and then as each home were to be built, if it includes an accessory structure, that would have to have a drainage plan that would not jeopardize the master drainage plan. So it's reviewed individually as each home's built.
Takes care of that.
That's why
it's the question. Thanks, Jeff. Mr. Hartman?
Yeah, I just was going to comment on what Chris was saying. I believe, I don't know if this homeowners association has it, but the one I'm in, we have an architectural control board that deals with this type of situation. People bring in their plan, show us what they're going to do, and they get approved or they get disapproved. So I think they would review the covenants. They would, at that time, to determine whether there's any violations going on. So, and as far as the size of the unit, I mean, I don't see this accessory unit as being anything different than putting an addition on your house. And I don't see why that would affect the drainage plan at all.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. McKay?
I think also the applicant representative made a comment that with his PUD, that they would put that within their PUD requirements, that they would not have rental units. Isn't that right, Chris, what you said?
Yeah, we could do it. If it's not in the HOA, then we will definitely put it in a restricted covenant saying no rentals within these, any lots within this PUD.
Okay. to include that in the PUD.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Scott Wadle, Planning Department. Before you would take any action or consider that, I would request that we touch base with city law, so Jeff Van Zant, about our ability and our options with that.
Okay. And Jeff Van Zant?
Yes, that's, if the applicant is willing to put that additional restriction in the PUD, that's perfectly fine. As to the other lots that are not included in this application, the only way that could occur would be if they actually went back and modified or amended their original covenants to restrict any further rentals. But it would, what's in this PUD would not have an effect on those other lots that are already in place that are not part of this application.
Okay, yeah. Mr. Warren?
Jeff, I got a question for you then, just to make sure that I'm on clear ground. Anything that we do here with a PUD does not supersede existing homeowners association rules and regulations. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, that's correct. I'm going on the assumption that there's nothing in the covenants that speaks to rental. You can add the additional requirement in the PUD. If by in chance there is something that is prohibiting rentals, this addition in the PUD would not pose a conflict with that. I don't think we would want to do anything that would say allow rentals in a PUD that would conflict with the homeowners association covenants. We're not doing that here, so we're okay.
My question had to do with if there were restrictions on wooded lots or water lots as to what people could do in their backyards. A PUD that allows Go ahead.
Yeah, they would, it could be setbacks from a water feature. And the wooded, I'm not sure. I really would have a hard time commenting for sure on that, but technically speaking, if there is some requirements as far as, for example, a further setback from a water feature, this would not allow an accessory structure to be any closer than what otherwise would be allowed. We're not going, and it's saying that it could go all the way up to the property line or something like that. Specifically, without seeing it, I'm not sure, but it would not override that requirement.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Normally, when there is a water reserve or a water feature, it's classified on the plat as a reserve and you know the size and everything.
Yeah.
So.
Yep, that's true. Okay, any further questions of the agent? Hearing none, we'll bring it back to the commission for action.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Ms.
I guess what I'd like to say is being on this commission for so many years, we dealt with so many individual lots where somebody had to come in here and get something to put an accessory of addition onto the house for their in-laws because they were in failing health or whatever. I really feel this is out in advance to take care of a lot of them issues. And I know that there's always a concern when there's changes, but I don't see that every one of these lots will have an accessory building attached to them. There might be 10%, it might be 5%. As far as up to water, up to trees, we're dealing with this particular area. And as long as it don't exceed what's already been planned in the past, I move to approve.
Okay, we have a motion to approve.
I'll second it.
And we have a second by Mr. McKay.
With one stipulation on the second, that they put in the rental clause in this PUD.
Okay. Do you have that noted, Philip?
Yep.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Foster?
Just some points of discussion. We've heard anywhere from 250 to 475 lots, and I don't know if that includes the 93 we're talking about, but I'm not comfortable that fire issue has been covered here. Does anybody, from staff's standpoint, does somebody really know the true number of lots, and has fire looked at it knowing the full number of lots?
When this discussion came up for the PUD, the Pike Edition on West Maple, the very first one that we did, and that discussion came up because that one only had one access. Neil Straw with planning staff looked at both the Rocky Ford edition as well as this edition, and I have an email statement, I don't have it in front of me, but I can supply it to you. Statement saying that should the density in these developments increase to what they could potentially be allowed to, it would not affect the fire code. It would not be in violation of the fire code. Planning staff did verify that it does not affect the fire code.
Okay. Second item relates to setback requirements. Whenever you have a principal structure and you have a reserve behind it, you can take that principal structure pretty close, and you'll have to help me on the dimension. I think it's like 5 feet from the rear property line.
I would need to look that up to verify. Give me 1 second here.
Might be 0.
What he's talking about is if there is a stipulation in the platted reserve, if there's a platted reserve, what the rear setback can be reduced to, or what the rear setback can be versus if it's not on a reserve. If you will allow me 1 second here, I can pull up the zoning code.
It's 5 feet.
5 feet.
Who said that?
Chris
Did.
Company, when there's a reserve that exceeds a distance, I think, of 10 feet, the rear setback line will go to 5 feet.
Okay.
But that's different than if you have a visibility restriction.
That is correct. HOA would probably have some sort of different setback for them. I don't have their HOA documents in front of me, so I don't know. The other thing would be is usually we have easements back there, so usually there's at least a 10-foot, probably a 20-foot back there. A lot of times on lots adjacent to reserves, we put the full 20-foot on the lots, but I don't have that plat in front of me, so I can't tell you for sure.
And I did verify and confirm that it can be down to 5 feet for a platted reserve, but he is correct. If there's easements back there, there's trump.
Go ahead.
Yeah, just to finish up on that, I think that weighs into Mr. Warren's concern related to construction in those areas along water. But I don't think we can address that setback since we're not talking about a plat at this point. So I just hope folks from the homeowners association are making notes to go back into their covenants and do some updates and make sure you've got the architectural review in place so you can control these items. But I think as long as the motion has in it that no rentals would be allowed by restrictive covenant that they would handle, then I would support the motion.
To address one of your first issue, Mr. Foster, with regards to access, that's always been a big bugaboo for me. And when I looked at the plat, I saw that there were actually 2 access points in and out along Hillside at the northern end, and then we also have the access point there on 45th Street. Once I saw that, I felt a lot more comfortable with the potential increase of lots. And then, Mr. Johnson, you had a comment?
Well, I think the other thing is everybody's gonna pull a permit on these houses, so hopefully a lot of this stuff is gonna be built right anyway, no matter what we say up here or state up here.
True.
Mr. Green?
Yes, Mr. Johnson, Joe.
Yeah, what was the district advisory board vote on this?
According to our staff, or the handouts that we got today, it was 9-1.
But they were under the assumption that there were restrictions on rental. That's what they were told.
That would be.
Is that right? I'm asking a question.
That is what was stated at the DAB meeting.
Yeah, that's what was stated at the DAB.
By the agent of the applicant. He was of the understanding that the covenants did not allow rentals.
So if we make that a provision, even though they didn't hear that way, it would seem like that would satisfy their concerns if they heard it again. Is that a good assumption?
I think that's a pretty safe assumption, since that was Mr. Warren's major concern, and we have now added that into the motion. So, yes, the long answer could have been a short answer. The answer is yes.
But we can't dictate that to be in their covenants. That has to be part of our approval, right?
Correct.
Yes.
Correct. Mr. Van Zant, did you have a comment?
Is that legal, Van Zant?
The restriction can be in the PUD, but we cannot specify that the homeowners association must add that to their covenants. That would be a voluntary act on their part.
Okay.
Well, I think I'll be against this then.
But if it's in the PUD, then would they be?
It can't be.
He said that
It can, yes, it can be in the PUD.
Yes,
But as to the lots that currently already have homes that are outside of this application, we cannot direct the HOA to amend their covenants to include those already existing structures and lots.
Okay, so,
thank you.
so then to take Mr. Bill Johnson's point, when somebody comes in to pull a building permit, they will know that this cannot be, the PUD will show and say that it can't be a rental, and the homeowners should be aware of that. And, okay. Mr. Foster.
Follow up on the rental question. Is the developer or the city going to be burdened to enforce this?
If it's in the PUD, it falls on the city because now it's part of the zoning classification.
And it's sounding like from legal that's everybody's comfortable with that.
It's legal to do that.
How about MABCD? How about MABCD? I mean, this is like the noise issue kind of thing.
Mr. Cox is
Yes,
coming up.
Mr. Foster, that is true. If somebody's engaging in something that violates a zoning provision, which this would if it's rental, the enforcement from the city's perspective could be difficult because it'd be on a complaint basis. The homeowners association under which these new homes will fall could elect to try to enforce those. In my experience, prior to coming to the city and representing homeowners associations, they're woefully underfunded to pay for legal expenses to do that. So I do appreciate it's tough, but it can come in two aspects. Either the city attempts it through zoning, or the homeowners association could try to enjoin the rental activity in these lots that are affected by the PUD because it would be under their purview as well.
J.R. Cox, Metropolitan Planning, for the record. Again, Mr. Foster, it would actually be the Zoning Enforcement Division of the Metropolitan Area Planning Department that would be the ones who would attempt to enforce this. I would echo Mr. Van Zant's words. It could be very difficult to enforce, but if it is a part of this PUD, it will be essentially a statutory requirement, so it'll be up to us to try to enforce it. Does that help?
All righty. Any other comments, questions? We do have a valid motion on the floor. And hearing no other comments, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to our next case. We have, Philip again.
It's me.
Lucky you.
Second verse, same as the first, right? All right, so The second case before you is Zone 2020-53. It's in Sedgwick County. It is a county rezone from rural residential to GC general commercial to permit a vehicle storage yard. The property is currently vacant and is generally located on the southwest corner of East 63rd Street. Scott, can you pop over and move some slides? I apologize. I just noticed that Paul had stepped out for a second.
Falls.
Yep. Wait here for a second. I apologize. Figure out which computer it's on. I think it's a laptop. Yep, it's the laptop. There you go. So just advance the slides. There you go. Okay, now we're cooking. All right. So it is on the southwest corner of East 63rd Street South and South Hydraulic. The contract buyer would like to develop the property with a boat and RV storage facility. The Unified Zoning Code defines vehicle storage yard as keeping outside of an enclosed building for more than 72 consecutive hours of one or more motor vehicles, except inoperable vehicles, or as you can say, they have to be operating, boats, trailers, or unoccupied recreational vehicles. The term does not include wreckage or salvage. So these are operable vehicles that are being stored outside of an enclosed building for more than 72 hours. It is unknown whether or not the site would be developed with enclosures for the vehicles. However, vehicle and storage yard allows them to be stored outdoors. So they don't have to be inside buildings, they can be stored outside. Properties north of this are within the city limits of Wichita, and some of it, they're right on the corner. As you can see, is zone general commercial. And then when you go further west, it's zone single-family residential. The general commercial zoning is vacant and has yet to be developed. The SF5 zoning is developed with large lot single-family residences. Could you go to the aerial so we can see what these look like? The general commercial zone properties, the one right on the corner is undeveloped. There are developed properties to the north, and it looks like they do store some vehicles outdoors on those lots, as you'll see in some pictures. Property to the south is zone SF5 and is large lot single-family residential, as well as agricultural use. Property to the east is zone single-family residential with single-family lots. I believe there's also a golf course that runs through there. Property to the northeast across the intersection, on the northeast side of the intersection, is limited commercial, and it's undeveloped. And property to the west is zone rural residential, and a portion of it is undeveloped. The lot right off of 63rd Street on the north part of the property does have a house on it, as you'll see in some pictures. Property was platted as Lot 3, Block A of the Copper Fox Farms Edition. Public services, East 63rd Street South is a paved 5-lane arterial street. South Hydraulic Avenue is a paved 2-lane arterial street. The intersection of the two has been improved with left turn lanes in all directions. The plat affords for a 130-foot opening along South Hydraulic, 252 feet south of the center line of the intersection, and one opening along 63rd Street with a minimum of 250 feet west of the center line of the intersection. So that one doesn't specify the exact location. You just have to be 250 feet west of the intersection, and there's a space within there that you could put one drive in. There are no sidewalks on either of the streets. City water is available near this site and could be extended if they needed facilities. There's a whole process with that of being in the county and getting city water. It is allowed. There's just kind of a surcharge, but it's a totally separate process, but it is allowed. Any sewer treatment on the site would be on site if they actually have any. The comprehensive plan identifies the site as residential on the future growth concept map. That encompasses areas that reflect the full diversity of residential development densities typically found in an urban municipality. But while the plan identifies the site for future residential development, historically sites located at the intersections of two arterial streets have been deemed appropriate for commercial development. The site is also located within the boundaries of the South Wichita-Hayesville Area Plan, which was adopted in 2002. The plan was conceived as an effort to provide guidance for redevelopment after a tornado went through the area in 1999, in addition to providing guidance for future development in the area. Chapter 4 of the plan discusses the desire for new commercial development in the area, and that future land use map identifies this property appropriate for commercial development. Staff recommendation of this request is for approval, subject to a protective overlay. And I'll go through what the protective overlay states. The first point being, staff would like to restrict the uses of this site to limited commercial, with the addition of the permitted use of vehicle storage yard as permitted in the general commercial zoning. So effectively, it'd be limited commercial zoning with the addition of the one use. Typically what we see, especially for arterial streets, would be more of a limited commercial type zoning. General commercial is a fairly intensive zoning classification. Though there is the presence of general commercial in the area already, it is not really in the best interest of the area to permit additional general commercial development as this continues to grow with residential development around it. Most of those general commercial properties were probably zoned before the residential properties were there. And so it's not a good practice to continue that when it is becoming more residentially dense, to allow additional general commercial zoning in the area. So we would want to restrict it to limited commercial with the addition of the one use for a vehicle storage yard as permitted in general commercial. The vehicle storage yard would be limited to the storage of operable boats or recreational vehicles only. So we're taking out the provisions for cars and other things of that nature that would be permitted. And in no case could it be used for sales or repair work, dismantling, or mechanical servicing of any vehicles or equipment, or the storage of those materials or supplies. The storage area and all entrances and exits shall be surfaced with an all-weather surface that meets the approval of the Director of the Metropolitan Planning, Building and Construction Department, or the Chief Jurisdiction Code Officer. It shall be maintained in good condition, free of weeds, trash, and other debris. Visual screening of areas adjacent to residential zoning districts shall be provided to protect adjacent properties from light, debris, and noise, and to preserve the adjacent property values. In no case shall a screening be less than required by Section 4B of the Unified Zoning Code, which states that a solid screening fence is a minimum of 6 feet tall. There is the provision that the applicant could demonstrate that adequate screening may be provided through alternative means, such as landscaping and things, but those things are also afforded within zoning code as well. You don't necessarily have to do a 6-foot fence, but you can screen by other means. If you're going to be doing that, then you have to have a landscape or screening plan, which has to be submitted to the planning department for a review and approval prior to the issuance of any licensing or building permits. If there is any outdoor lighting, the lighting shall be in compliance with the standards of the zoning code. And if we find that the site is not in compliance with any of these regulations, we can consider it null and void. And there shall be no outdoor speakers or sound amplification systems permitted. Our findings for our recommendation, we already talked about the zoning, and that the future land use map of the South Wichita-Hayesville area plan identifies this as appropriate for commercial development. In addition, the comprehensive, it has historically been that the corners of arterial roads have been appropriate for commercial zoning. The way it's zoned now, the property is zoned rural residential, could be developed with a new single-family dwelling or any other appropriate use within rural residential. Extent to which the removal of the restrictions will detrimentally affect nearby property. Though the intended use of the vehicle storage is deemed appropriate, other permitted uses within general commercial could be detrimental to the growing residential development of the immediate area. The provisions of the protective overlay will minimize or mitigate any negative impacts of the commercial development with any surrounding adjacent residential development. The property has never been developed. Historically, looking back, there has never been any structure. It's always been agricultural of some kind. We've already discussed the conformance to the comprehensive plan, and the development of the property would not have any major impacts on the community facilities. We can go through pictures of the site. I'm going to move ahead in the show. So there's the comprehensive plan. This is looking northwest. This is hydraulic in front of you. This is looking at the site. You can see it's agricultural right now. Next picture. This is looking North of 63rd Street, our immediate property is undeveloped. That's general commercial. You can see development on the lot north of that one. That one's also zoned general commercial. Keep going. This is at the intersection looking northeast at the site that is undeveloped but is zoned limited commercial. Keep going. This is looking east of the property. These are the single-family homes that also have the golf course going through their neighborhood. Next picture. This is on the south end of the site. You can see that's the closest home in that development to this property across the street. Next one. This is looking at the site, looking south. You can see it's undeveloped. Next picture. This is the property behind it. Like I said, the aerial showed that it was just agriculture, but there was a home, and you can also see how wooded it is between the two properties. Next picture. This is the property. It's actually further north than what the eyeball is showing. This is that red barn that you saw in the first picture. This is zoned general commercial, and this is the current state of what's being allowed to be on property there, whether it's in compliance or not. We'll put it that way, because those don't necessarily look like they're operable vehicles, or some of them don't. Not passing any official professional statement on that, but that's the current state of a general commercial zone property nearby. Is there any, I don't know if there's another picture or not. Oh, this is the last picture. This is property to the south of it, zoned SF5, I believe. You verify that. Yeah, SF5, and it has a single-family home with a detached garage and some agricultural land around it. I think that might be it. Any more? Does not look like it. Okay. So with that, again, this is out in the county, so it does not go to a district advisory board. This district in the county, which is District 5, does not have a citizens advisory board, or actually it was just set up, but they don't take zoning items. So this is the only public hearing it will be before it goes to the Board of County Commissioners after the protest period. I can stay in for any questions.
Okay. Do we have any questions for staff? Yes, Mr. Warren.
Philip, the screening is the complete perimeter of the property?
It would have to be, let me conform to the, it says visual screening of areas adjacent to residentially zoned districts shall be provided to protect adjacent properties. So adjacent could understand, I might lean on JR on here. It's definitely the south and the west. Whether or not it has to be screened from the adjacent right-of-way, I'm going to lean on JR here to provide that interpretation of if they have to screen from residentially zoned properties that are across the right-of-way.
J.R. Cox, Metropolitan Planning again. It would not only have to be screened from adjacent residentially zoned properties, but also from any public right-of-way within 150 foot of the storage area itself.
Say that again.
Wherever it would have to be screened from the adjacent residential properties that may exist and any public right-of-way within 150 feet of the storage area. So wherever they delineate the storage area, if there's a street within 150 foot of that, it would have to be screened. Yes?
If the storage area were enclosed instead of open, and as I understand, we don't know which it will be, is the same screening requirement?
I would say if it's totally enclosed, the screening requirement would be met by the enclosure, if it's in a building, in other words.
So another way of phrasing what you just said, if the storage units were within 150 feet of 63rd Street and or 150 feet from Hydraulic Avenue, then the screening would have to be in place.
By storage units, do you mean an enclosed building?
The storage
area?
Yeah, the storage
area. If it's an
areas.
open outdoor storage area, that would be correct.
If they are within 150 feet of Hydraulic and or 150 feet of 63rd. Does that help?
It helps. I understand what they're saying from a concept, though. I'm trying to think how that would lend itself if you put a boat, a motorhome that you're going to store for somebody. If that unit, if the boat is more than 150 foot away, they would not have to put any screening up?
Correct.
But they would have to have designated screening, or designated storage areas on
Correct.
their site plan
And
that would then reflect the need or no need for screening.
right, and 150 foot is a pretty good distance that's usable. So I would tend to think if that's the business model that it's going to be used within that 150 foot. But I don't know that. I don't know that.
So anything within, if it's less than 150 foot, they'd have to, if it have screened the entire property if they're, okay.
Now, to play devil's advocate,
Yes.
we could require that screening to be in place whether or not it's 150 feet from the right-of-way.
I think you probably could do that, yes.
Okay, as a condition, okay? All right, any other questions for Philip? Yes, Mr. Nix?
We say that we require a minimum of 6 feet, but we could require it to be higher than 6 feet given the nature of this. I'm
Yes.
just wondering what that maximum is.
Our zoning code puts a maximum at 8 feet.
8 feet. Yeah, and yes, Mr. Cox?
8 feet within required setbacks.
Could you speak into the microphone, please?
Yes, sir, I surely shall. 8 feet within required setbacks.
Right.
If it's not in required setback, it could actually be a higher fence height. Then it falls MAPC, the building folks, they'd have to have engineering, and it gets more complicated the higher you go.
Okay. And to just to go further with this, on the visual screening, I know that we had a case, probably last year, maybe the year before, up around 29th and Hoover, where we not only had a screening fence requirement, we also had berms and landscaping to enhance that screening wall portion of our requirements. So I think that we have many opportunities and options that we can impose on this if, in fact, we decide to go and approve this case. So,
I agree, I think you do. It would be in the form of protective overlay.
Right.
That's how you'd want to do that, if that's the will of the body.
okay, all right. Any other comments or questions for staff? Hearing none, we'll turn it over to the agent or applicant, and you have 10 minutes.
Agent or applicant, please.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, my name is Cale Warren. I am the applicant on this application.
What is your
First
address?
off,
What's your address? Give us your address.
Oh, my address is 2012 North Peppercorn Road, Derby, Kansas, 67037.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So to start off, this business kind of came about because I'm an avid boater and camper myself. When I moved to Derby in 2018, I was looking for storage for my equipment, similar to what I have in mind. And upon finding none, I developed this idea of trying to put some in the area. My intention is not for any open storage, but some hybrid between open and closed. It would be a pole barn style, if you will, where it would be covered on the roof as well as walls on either end and open to the front for people to either back their boats in or pull their RVs in however they wish. From there, it was regards to the screening. I've seen in the protective overlay, and that is something I'm willing to abide by. And I can say that most likely it would be within 150 feet of the property line. So screening would certainly be something that I would have to follow. So with that, I would like to add that my personal background has always been to do things at 110%. The properties across the street that are zoned general commercial, I have zero intention of letting it look like that. No ill regard on their property, but certainly want to make sure that my property is kept up with absolute utmost importance to me. And this would be a quiet business. There'd be certainly some increased traffic on the weekends in the summertime, but other than that, I think this would be a fairly quiet business that would run itself and be minimal impact to the surrounding area. So with that, I'll turn it back over to council, and thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for the owner from the commission? Yes, Ms. Fox?
What are your plans for lighting on this property? Will there be lights
My
at night?
plans for lighting. Go ahead.
Will there be lights at night, for example?
Yes, there would be some light at night. I have planned for that to be mostly motion detected. That way, there would be minimal light impact to the surrounding neighborhood when there's no traffic within the confines of the property.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Yes, Mr. Foster?
You know, I don't know what kind of acreage requirements for this type of business are necessary, but do you anticipate filling the entire 5 acres with this business?
Long-term, that would be the plan. That is correct. To start off, until I can generate some revenue, the plan would be to develop just a small portion of it and then continue to develop as finances allow.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions for the agent? Seeing none. Is there anyone at Century 2 that would like to address the commission on this case?
Mr. Chairman, there's no comment from Century 2.
Thank you, Mary. Is there anyone virtually that would like to address the commission on this case? And if so, you have, if you could state your name and address, and you have 10 minutes. Sorry, 3 minutes, sorry. It's been a short, long day. Yeah, you have 3 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, this is Greg Ferris. If I might have 3 minutes.
Sure.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission, my name is Greg Ferris. My mailing address is Post Office Box 573, 67201. I've been working with both the homeowner associations that abut this area. There are approximately 88 homes and lots in those areas, and 86 of them are opposed to this. There are several reasons that they're opposed. You should have received a letter that goes through some of the issues of Policy 10 and why they don't believe that this is appropriate in this area. That commercial zoning to the north, except for the basically the non-conforming piece that is not in conformance with the zoning code. We believe that was done when this was a sand pit, and it was in conjunction with that. And as these lots developed residential, they all got rid of that conditional use, and the zoning went away, and I think this corner was left over. I looked at staff's comments, and with all due respect, their findings actually lean more towards denial than they do approval. The character of that area is residential. The uses are residential. There are no commercial uses except for the one lot that has a non-conforming use. So the character and zoning of the area is clearly not in conformance with general commercial zoning. And while there is a PUD that you, or a protective overlay that you're recommending, staff has listed light commercial with storage yard, that's still just general commercial, because that is a heavy use in general commercial, so we're very much opposed to that. The property, as staff said, is suitable for what it's been restricted to. The comprehensive plan is kind of ambiguous because one plan says it should be residential, the other says commercial. And clearly, this area is residential and should continue to be such. You will hear from a lot of the neighbors on what their specific concerns are, but just looking at the zoning code itself, the facts of the case, and even staff's comments, there's nothing in this report that lends this piece of ground and this approval to be granted for general commercial uses, even if it's has a light commercial protective overlay. Thank you for your time. I'm glad to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Ferris. Are there any questions of the speaker? Mr. Warren?
Mr. Ferris, as you've talked with your clients, the homeowners in the area, I look at this property and I, without water being up next to it and without any wooded area and the nature of the traffic in that area, this particular lot, in my opinion, does not lend itself well to residential. Were there any other ideas from the neighborhood as to what kind of business, or if they don't want this business, is there another business, or they want this to be residential?
Well, I think, Mr. Warren, I think if you look at that entire section of area, this is just one part of the ownership of that same group. It could easily be developed as residential, and it may not be the large lot residential that you see to the north, but certainly to the south, you see 0.9 acre lots. So this area, in conjunction with some of the other area, could easily be developed with that, and you see that across the road. So I don't know why it would not be able to be done as residential. They don't believe that, a Quick Trip or any of the other, a restaurant, a bar or tavern, well, the bar or tavern would have some issues because of the 300-foot rule, but they just don't believe that this is right now an appropriate commercial corner.
Thank you.
Thanks. Any other questions from the commission? Thank you, Mr. Ferris. Is there anyone else virtually that would like to address this issue or this case? And if there are, you have. Oh, I'm sorry. Is there anyone from Century 2? Yeah, I already asked that.
Yeah, there's no one there.
Yeah, I've gone to Century 2. Is there anyone else virtually that would like to address this case? Name and address, and you have 3 minutes.
I would like to, but if David Edwards or Brad Shelton is on virtually, I would prefer that they go first.
Okay.
Good afternoon. This is David Edwards, 6437 South Madison Court, Wichita, Kansas, 67216. Aside from being the homeowner in that Pine Bay, I am also the association president for the HOA. We had submitted to the board a petition, which we know is not a formal petition, but we had 80 of 82 people that we contacted sign the petition saying that we really do not want this. We have 5 primary reasons for that. One is Pine Bay still has 11 undeveloped lots, 5 of them directly facing this proposed commercial structure or lot. Another 3 of those 11 are facing 63rd Street with a view of that lot. As we've been progressing and getting more lots developed as residential, we see that the development of that corner with potentially 8 of our lots facing it would be completely detrimental and almost seal the case for not being able to develop those as residential as they would be facing that lot. The second would be the restrictive covenants that we have in terms of zoning use and character of the neighborhood. Pine Bay has had covenants in place for 35 years, since December of '85, against allowing businesses and also specifically not allowing outdoor storage for any period of time. So we have a 35-year history of use that's really prohibitive to that. The third would be that there are other locations, obviously right across the street. There are already light commercial and other commercial developments that they could use without having to rezone another 6 acres that would be more suited, in our opinion, for residential. We have a little concern with the property being leased, that we would get a commercial zoning. We have a short-term lease on the property, that when that lease is up by zoning commercial, we would open the door for other light commercial, which would be less desirable even than what we've got proposed now. And then last, the light commercial lot that you see on that zoning that's east of Pine Bay, and I'm sorry, east of Hydraulic and south of East Pine Bay Street, has been purchased by homeowners within Pine Bay Association, just so that it would not be developed as light commercial. And that's the points that we would like to bring up, and we will return it to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Edwards. Is there anyone on the commission that has a question for the speaker? Hearing none, we'll move on. Is there anyone else virtually that would like to address the commission on this case?
This is Stephen Britton. I live at 1500 East 63rd, directly north of the proposed zoning change. We strongly oppose the rezoning of this property. The area surrounding the proposed zoning change is primarily residential, and the introduction of a vehicle storage yard, even with a protective overlay, would be detrimental to the area. According to GIS, current zoning of the parcels within 1,000 feet of this zoning change, there are 60 parcels and 97% of land area are either SF5 or rural residential. 6 parcels and 3% of land area are general commercial or light commercial, according to GIS. The LBCS functions in the area 80% residential, 17% farming, 2% golf course, and 1% warehouse. The neighborhoods primarily large lot suburban residential, and include Pine Bay Golf Course and an HOA governed water ski lake to the north. General commercial zoning would not be a good fit in the area. A vehicle storage yard is considered an industrial, manufacturing, or extractive use. This is why a vehicle storage yard is only allowed in general commercial, central business district, limited industrial, general industrial, or Air Force Base zoning areas, and only conditionally allowed in rural residential only under very specific circumstances. A vehicle storage yard is not allowed as a conditional use in any other type of zoning area, including limited commercial. Although D6MM allows for conditional use of a vehicle storage yard within rural residential, this conditional use is limited to only lots developed with a residence as the primary structure, and requires that only 10,000 square feet can be devoted to a vehicle storage yard. General commercial and permitted uses of general commercial would not match the zoning uses and character of this neighborhood. The parcel with the zoning change request was platted less than 1 year ago as rural residential and has historically been used for agriculture. Although historically the corner of 2 arterial streets has been deemed appropriate for commercial uses, typically they are limited strictly to light commercial use, and especially when surrounded by residential areas. The property of the proposed zoning change is presently zoned rural residential. The property has been used for farmland in the past and could be developed with new single family dwelling or remain available for agricultural use. The property currently has city water available.
Mr. Britton?
However, sanitary sewer is not available at this parcel at this time, and restrictive covenant requiring an alternative on-site waste.
Mr. Britton, excuse me, but your time has expired. Would you like 1 minute to complete your thought?
We are in the process of getting back his audio. Have you? Okay, he's unmuted.
Okay. Mr. Britton, your time has expired. Can you finish up your comments within 1 minute?
Yes, I believe so.
Thank you.
Unattended RV and boat storage will invite crime and unwanted attention to the area. Traffic patterns will be disrupted by large RVs and boat trailers turning in, and dust could be created by a gravel yard. Even with extensive screening, a vehicle storage yard changes the character of the area.
Okay, thank you for your testimony. Do we have anybody on the commission that has a question for the speaker? Hearing none, thank you very much. Is there anyone else virtually that would like to address us on this matter? Keeping in mind you have, state your name and address. State your name and address, and you have 3 minutes, and try not to be repetitive of what's been presented already. Thank you.
Absolutely, I can answer. Paul, I would like to put up the slide of that first commercial property north of 63rd on the west side of Hydraulic, the red building. Anyway, Paul Davis, 6715 South Madison Court, Pine Bay Estates, here since 1998. I opposed this application for the following reason. I have served on Wichita Citizens Participation Organization and District Advisory Board since the 80s, when eligible by election or appointment. I have been term limited a couple times, but still attended most meetings. What I have most consistently seen regarding applications for zoning changes or variances boils down to the applicant does not appear to answer questions, which he has today, and I appreciate that, but rather is represented by an attorney or other professional who knows exactly how to answer questions posed, as well as exactly, and perhaps more importantly, what not to say, usually in the form of, I'll have to get back to you on that. Staff, as they should, offers background and other pertinent information per their template as they see before you, along with their recommendation to approve with conditions or deny. In my experience, approved conditions is the most common, and this is the case here. Once approved and conditions are met, the job of staff is discharged. What ensues is why my conditions become very important and unfortunately too common. Code enforcement then becomes, almost without fail, only in response to public complaints. One problem with that is that citizens, generally speaking, do not know what is and what is not permitted. Next, we're told, if you see something, say something. How often you will often be required to file a formal complaint. Then the accused has the right to know their accuser, and I can tell you from firsthand experience, retribution follows. Not a pleasant position to find oneself in. I would offer as an example of how property's usage can decline into near blight, the two properties north of 63rd on the west side of Hydraulic, this being one that you have on the screen now. These were, if memory serves, originally fruit stands from when the area, including all of what is now Pine Bay, were beech orchards. They are now repositories for a significant number of inoperative or otherwise stationary vehicles. The one to the south, which is on the screen, is now a body shop, a portion of which I believe the proprietor and 3 generations of his family lives in. In conclusion, besides the fact that the proposed usage amounts to little more than a series of open tractor sheds, there's no guarantee that once staff conditions are originally met that this property, like so many others, will not devolve into one or more far less desirable or intolerable uses now permitted by right under proposed zoning. I would also like to point out, as it has been mentioned, that all development in this area since 1998 has been residential with no commercial buildings built. And also, I co-own that lot on Hydraulic Drive that was referred to as one commercial zone for the reason given is to prevent building on it. I strongly encourage you to deny this request, and thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Davis, for your testimony. Do we have any questions for the speaker?
I did not catch Mr. Davis's address.
Hey, Mr. Davis, could you give us your address again, please?
6417 South Madison Court.
Thank you, sir.
Absolutely, thank you.
Is there anyone else virtually that would like to address the commission on this case?
My name is Brad Shelton, and my address is 1430 East 63rd Street South.
Okay, Mr. Shelton, you have 3 minutes, and try to bring new items to our attention. if you can.
Yes, I will not reiterate anything that's already been said. That was pretty in-depth there, but I do want to say that we obviously oppose it, but the photos that are shown here, these slides, are a little bit misconceiving in the fact that it's just showing bare ground. I live directly northwest of the said property, and it's a very nice neighborhood over there that's held to strict covenants of square footage and ornamental fencing and things like that were not even shown in those photos. But to answer the question of could it stay residential since there's no water, there is water there, but wells, those things can be had too, which is what we live on as well. But I just encourage to oppose this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shelton. Are there any questions of the speaker? Hearing none, thank you again for your testimony. Is there anyone else virtually that would like to address the commission on this? Is there anyone else? Yes.
Mr. Chairman, we have received a couple of comments on this through the chat function.
Yes.
When it's appropriate, I can go ahead and give you a summary of those if you'd like.
Okay. That you can.
Okay.
Yeah.
The first one is from Trudy Carker. She indicates that she's having some technology issues, and she is encouraging you to vote to deny the request. Impacts to adjacent housing, adjacency of the commercial, and the impacts that it would have to what she has enjoyed as a peaceful residential setting. And again, addressing what she feels are the negative impacts of the commercial change.
Okay.
There's one more towards the end. I think we got that addressed with showing the photo. Sorry for the delay. There's been a few comments and back and forth.
That's fine.
Okay, yes, there was a request to show the photo. We've done that. And Mr. Fox, Sean Fox, has indicated that he would like to speak on this item.
Yeah, he's the owner.
Okay, so
Yeah.
very good. Looks like we've gotten all of them addressed. Thank
Okay,
you.
all right. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, before Sean Fox speaks, can I just say it very briefly, something?
Yes, name and address.
So Jeff Longwell, address 7806 West 17th Street Court, 67212. I live just a bit outside of the 1,000 feet.
Yes, you do. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to add, I have several friends that live in this development. I've visited the lake just to the north when I say this development. And these are people that have built their forever homes, much like the golf course properties to the east are people that have invested in their forever homes. And without trying to sound flippant, I want to say this is why we can't have nice things in South Wichita. We need to protect these people's property values, their forever homes. And I'm worried that if you allow this zoning to go forward, you're not going to have to worry about additional residential in the area. Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for the speaker? Hearing none, thank you for your testimony, Mr. Longwell. Is there anyone else that would like to address the commission before we go back to the agent or owner?
Yes, I would.
Okay. Your name?
This is Dave Capon. I'm at 6349 South Madison Court. This directly is viewed out of my backyard. My wife and I moved here a little over a year ago because we enjoy the area because it's all residential. I'm also the District 3 Advisory member as well. I don't believe that this would be very good for the district or for the residential area, and I am adamantly opposed to this.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any questions for the speaker from the commission? Hearing none, thank you for your testimony today. Is there anyone else virtually that would like to address the commission on this?
Yes, my name is Stephen Howard, and I live at 1725 East Pine Bay. And I'm fully opposed to it, but I have a couple issues also. I have a drainage concern with that property being, right now it's basically grass and it'll change to probably some sort of aggregate. That aggregate is going to run off, and I don't know what the drainage impact of a 5-acre lot will make on the area as far as flooding goes. We live pretty close to a flood zone the way it is right now. The only other thing I'd like to add is I went out and there are 15 storage facilities within a 3-mile radius of the proposed location. The biggest one being at 63rd and K15, and it is a huge facility that is enclosed by decorative concrete walls and limits at least the impact to that area. I think there's more than adequate storage facilities available in this area, and not only am I a homeowner here, I will be looking at it too, because I'll be catty corner to looking right out hydraulic onto the facility. Anyway, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Howard. Is there anyone on the commission that has a question for the speaker? Hearing none, is there anyone else virtually?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes?
Brandon Clark, 1212 East 63rd Street.
Okay.
And I do believe that it was touched on briefly about the theft issue. However, and I think council is probably quite aware of the catalytic converter issue going around town. That's up 1,600%. And obviously unattended and unsecured vehicles sitting in a storage yard is going to obviously uptick the theft in the area, actually invite it to the area. And for that and other reasons, obviously opposed.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions for the speaker? Thank you, Mr. Clark. Is there anyone else that would like to address the commission on this? Virtually?
This is Dirk Britton. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
This is Dirk Britton. I'm at 1300 East 63rd Street South. I've been here since day one, kind of helped start develop this property with Jim Beebe, the Spray Lake edition. And we had, a few years ago, we had an issue with, they redid the road and did the drainage. They drained that down there by the end of the lake. And it actually, the first time it rained, almost overflowed into the lake. So they put a retention pond at the end at our request, which did help, but last year or the year before, it almost went over the bank again. So I'm a little bit concerned if they figured out what's going to happen when, like the other guy before, when they go put a hard surface on that. Now water, if it drains in the ditch and drains this way, I don't know, but I'd be curious to know.
Okay.
And that's all I have. Thanks.
Well, thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone on the commission that has a question of the speaker? Hearing none, is there anyone else virtually that would like to address the commission on this? Hearing none, yes, Mr. Wadle.
Just a quick note that we did receive another comment coming in, this one about the adverse impact that the proposed rezoning would have on property values in the area.
Okay. All right. Thank you. At this point, we'll bring the discussion back to to Mr. Fox, the owner, so you can address some of these issues that you've heard.
Thank you and good afternoon. My name is Sean Fox and I live at 1425 East 63rd Street South, Wichita, 67216, which is just west of the proposed zone change. I'd like to, if I could, in a recent but not so different zoning case up in Park City, there was an adjacent neighborhood that was concerned about property values, among other things such as traffic, safety, noise, human trafficking, all these different items that were brought up as far as how proposed rezoning of a property to allow a truck stop would impact their home values. One opinion that was offered during those proceedings was that of Dr. Stanley Longhofer, who's the director in the Stephen L. Clark Chair of Real Estate and Finance at Wichita State. To paraphrase his comments, he said that it's difficult to find reliable research on whether a particular use, such as a truck stop or an RV storage facility, detrimentally impacts nearby property values because each development is unique. Even then, how much they are affected depends on the specific plans of that development. Several factors cited can, could, may impact property values include location, home size, age, condition, upgrades, supply, demand, real estate comps, building regulations, interest rates, the list goes on and on. But in my opinion, the vast majority of these have no bearing on whether this property is being zoned with a limited commercial use under the general commercial guideline. Philip has done a very good job identifying that historically, as well as what is in the present surrounding area, the corner of two arterial streets have been deemed appropriate for commercial uses. The future land use map identifies the property as appropriate for commercial development as well. In this case, the applicant, I feel, has been transparent by reaching out to the nearby homeowners association, sharing his plans, as well as his commitment to maintain the property in such a fashion to where when his vision is realized, it will be seen as a benefit to the community and not a distractor or an eyesore, and I support him. Pending that, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to.
Do you have any questions for Mr. Fox? Yes, Ms. Fox.
Mr. Fox, no relation.
Yes.
Is it true that you're going to lease this property to the man building the park? Or is he purchasing?
It is under a long-term 20-plus year lease to buy contract.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, Mr. Foster.
Scott, there was a chat that came up, a comment, I believe, from Mr. Shelton. It didn't stay up long enough to read it. Could you show that, please? There, I think it was down just below there. There we go. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Now, is the agent, is Mr. Warren on? Did he?
Well, Mr. Sean Fox here is the owner of the property, so.
Okay, so
basically he rebutted.
Okay, he presented earlier.
Right,
Okay,
it's
all right.
agent or applicant and.
Okay, yeah, great, yep, thanks, okay. I guess, at this point, we'll bring it back to the commission for discussion.
Mr. Green?
Yes, Mr. Johnson.
I move for denial.
Second, Josh.
Okay, well, it's been moved and seconded to deny. Do we have any comments or questions on the motion? Mr. Warren?
About a quantity here. You've got a piece of property on two busy streets with commercial zoning on two of the four corners currently that are already zoned in some form of a commercial situation. The flip side is that you've got some nice houses directly to the north and west of this property, and some nice houses along the golf course directly to the east of this property. The golf course properties specifically have the golf course as the buffer between the busy streets and the houses. So those houses aren't backing, right up to the area because of we've got it from that standpoint. And the ones that are backed up directly to the street are not very popular. That's why there's no one built on those because of that. So we've got a situation where I don't believe that this property has got any possibility of being developed residentially at all, ever. I don't see that. My mind is working towards some sort of a situation, some kind of a buffer, an exceptional buffer. I'm kind of looking to Mr. Foster here for some help on what kind of a buffer could we do to almost make this thing invisible from the road, but still be allowed to be developed in a way that would allow somebody to have a low impact business. This is about as low impact from a traffic standpoint as anything that you would ever see. This has got some, I think, maybe the best use possible for this lot because there are not too many other options that would lend itself. So I throw that out as a point of discussion to see if there's any traction for some kind of a super buffer that would allow this thing to be developed and hopefully lessen the impact, the negative impact that may be out there for the residents in the area. But with two corners already zoned commercial, I think we need to find a middle ground here if there's something out there for that. So,
Mr. Foster?
To try to address the issue of buffer is, as the discussion has gone on, we come back to the basic question, and that's a land use question. Is this appropriate, is what it comes down to. I'm thinking of two other projects that we have looked at. And the one up on 29th and Hoover turned out very nicely. Nice landscape screening, has great presentation from the roadway for the neighbors. But it was of a different character. It had the storage units, some nice structures that were done. So, but it's a case in point that landscaping can really make something come together and provide that buffer. The second one is the one also on Hoover, but just north of 21st there, north and east of the zoo. That one was smaller in nature though. And if you've driven by there, the landscape helped some, a few trees and things, the fencing, but you still see the issue of anything above the height of the fence. You can see all the very much a mishmash of different types of structures parked back in there. So whether that's sightly, I'll let others debate that. But here's my question. That one was done at a smaller scale. And it seems appropriate, and it seems to work in that setting. My concern on this one at 5 acres, if this were all played out there, I think it does begin to hurt the residential character of the neighborhood. So I'm going to support the motion. However, if we're going to disapprove this, we need to come up with some factors. We can't just say we disapprove it. So I would put it on the motion maker and the second to come up with some factors for disapproval. Just to kind of finalize the thought on an appropriate buffer, I think if we do that, then there's going to be time for the market to help determine what that buffer might be.
Mr. Warren, that was when when we first started discussing this case, one of the things that I was looking at was, noticing that this is the intersection of two arterials. Zoning is similar on two corners. And yet I was concerned about the visual aspects of this location from the neighborhood. And I feel like I think proper screening, not only 6 to 8 foot wall, but also berms and landscaping would help to shield this area from the neighborhood, if you will, from the intersection, and yet still provide an opportunity for a business to be here. I think this would be a great location for a quick trip, but they have them everywhere. But I mean, it's got that viability there, and that's certainly not what anybody wants to have go in there, especially with the surrounding neighborhood. So I think there's got to be something. There's got to be a happy medium here, and I'm kind of leaning towards something other than just flat denial. Mr. Johnson.
Hey, could I ask you a question?
Mr. Florence.
Yeah, Terrell.
Hey, I thought it was my understanding that the light commercial across the street was bought by some residents over there and kept that way so that no business would go in there. Did I hear that wrong?
No, that was correct.
That's correct.
One of the members from Pine Bay, their testimony stated that it is owned by individuals within Pine Bay or something to that effect to prevent it from being developed commercially.
And that's the northeast
corner.
Northeast
the
corner.
corner that is zone limited commercial.
Okay. Yeah, Mr. Johnson, Bill?
Okay, when we first started hearing this case, I understood that he was going to enclose a complete facility, which I think we could say it has to be 6 foot tall or 8 foot tall. The other thing I thought I heard him say, these were going to be put in canopies that are enclosed on 3 sides. So to me, that somewhat makes it not quite as visible as the one at 63rd and K15. I don't know how many acres is behind that wall, but I don't think there's any cover over any of them. Yes, it is a corner of 63rd and Hydraulic. Probably when it was in the county, it was probably 5-acre corner zoning for commercial development. It isn't that way now all around. And as far as the lot being light commercial, and the guy said he's not going to build on it, he passes away and somebody else buys it, it's light commercial, so it can become commercial. The turnpike entrance there at Hayesville is not too far south of this. And there's quite a mixture down there. I feel pleasant that I think there's a salvage yard straight south of this, and there's a lot of nice houses built with that salvage yard being there. And I think if we come up with the right idea, I think we need to try to make it work somehow.
I'm going to make an attempt at a substitute motion that probably will be amended. Matter of fact, I would welcome any changes or amendments to it, but that would be to approve with the condition of a 100-foot setback on both 63rd and Hydraulic, 8-foot fencing, and double the tree screening of a normal commercial setback on those two settings.
Some berms, maybe?
Some berms and trees to create something visually appealing.
Just Scott has a comment.
Do we have a?
I'll second it.
So we've got a substitute motion. Yes.
Just a point of
Mr.
clarification, that those requirements would be accomplished through a protective overlay, is that correct?
That's correct.
Great.
Okay? So, is there any discussion on the substitute motion, Mr. Foster?
Need a second before we have discussion.
It was seconded by
Okay.
Mr. Johnson.
If we could interject real quick, keep in mind that this property is in the county, is not subject to the landscape ordinance. So regarding required landscaping for commercial businesses is not applicable.
Can I reference the city of Wichita's landscaping as a reference point?
I guess you could, yeah.
Just make it specific.
As a guide with the enhancements that.
Planning staff say yes, but we will defer to legal if they have a different interpretation.
Okay. For the purposes of the motion, then, as a guide.
Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, Justin?
Yeah, this is Justin Wagoner, Assistant County Counselor. I think Scott got that correct in terms of, and I think you could incorporate the city's landscaping plan with any amendments that would be in the protective overlay language.
And I would, as a part of my motion, would reference the city's landscape ordinance, and that the motion would be for double the amount of trees and vegetation as required for a, what would be the term, Mr. Foster? Help me out here. Is there a commercial?
I mean, the buffering requirement?
Well, yeah. What would I be comparing to? A commercial, just a commercial zoning buffer?
For the trees and.
Yeah.
It'd be for buffering with residential uses and non-residential uses.
Okay, so I would double the amount of landscaping required for buffering next to residential uses.
With a berm? With berms?
With berms.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. And, and that was the second. Yeah, and so, Mr. McKay?
I need a clarification. You, in your motion, your substitute motion, you said that you go through the buffering and everything, and then you talked about an 8-foot fence.
Right.
Are you gonna put the buffering on the inside of that 8-foot fence, or are you gonna put the buffering on that outside? Because you got 100 feet.
On the outside with the fencing at 100 foot.
So you got a 100-foot buffer there already, right. So the fence goes inside the 100 feet.
100 foot on.
And the landscaping applies to the 100 feet between there, the right of way, and the fence. Is that what you're saying?
Say that again?
I said, the fence goes 100 feet inside the property line.
Right.
And the buffering, the architectural buffering goes between the fence
and the road.
And the right of way. Is that on just the two sides?
Just the two sides.
So that's the 63rd Street side and the hydraulic side?
Correct.
And then regular buffering?
Regular buffering on the other two.
Yeah, regular visual screening on the other two sides. Okay, Mr. Foster?
I know we're not supposed to touch upon the economics of something like this, but I'll interject this for point of discussion. If you remember up back at 29th and Mays Road, Sam's Club that went in there. What made that one possible was a 25-foot plus tall berm and a heck of a lot of landscape material, and that made that possible. My point is, this is not a Sam's Club, and it's not like those really nice storage units that were done that may be able to generate the income. It's going to be a huge expense around this entire area to meet that requirement. So,
can I ask a question?
If you're on the commission, yes. If not, public comment has ceased.
Okay.
Thank you.
so I frankly think the applicant here, before we burden this property with this particular decision, I'd want the applicant on board before making a judgment relative to that property. And I don't know if that's appropriate, so.
I've got a comment.
Yeah, Mr. Hartman?
I think instead of the 100-foot buffer, I'd rather see, with, say, a 50-foot buffer, you could go in there with a 5 or 6 foot berm, and be a lot easier to maintain, and I think it would look a lot better actually than a big 100-foot buffer trying to, you know, if you condense it all with your landscaping, I think it would be a better buffer than a big 100-foot buffer that, you know, from a maintenance standpoint wouldn't be as easy to maintain. I don't think it would look as good.
Are you thinking about?
I'm thinking of a 50-foot setback for the wall.
50 foot
And
and
50-foot
still
buffer. I
maintain?
mean, the whole thing doesn't, I mean, if you take the buffer requirement, I mean, it's probably gonna look pretty sparse in there with the number of trees you got with that big of an area. So
And including the fence, keeping the fence in there also?
I'd leave the fence in,
Yeah.
but reduce the 100-foot to maybe 50. And that'd get you enough room to get a 5 or 6 foot berm that you could meander in there that would.
I
be able
was
to
hoping
landscape
for
it.
some ideas like that, because I didn't know where to start, so I could amend my motion, but if there's any other changes before I do that, we'll only try to amend it one more time. Is there any other?
But I'm thinking, you know, if you have a berm is typically 4 to 1 or whatever. If you got a 5 foot berm, 5 or 6 foot berm, you know, you got 20 feet to get up and 10 foot flat bottom, and then 10 foot to get back, 40, you know, to get back down, about 50 feet.
I would amend my motion to 50 foot.
There's your 50 right there.
I would too.
And the second is
I do
agreeing
think
with
Mr.
that?
Foster's correct, though,
With
and
that?
we ought to ask the
Yeah, I
applicant
think
if
you need
this
to-
is
you're
within
talking about a lot of
something that
money.
they would consider, because they may look at this and say, that's a deal killer, and if that's the case, then we need to know that now.
Mr. Fox, have you been kind of tracking with the discussion here?
Yes, I have, but I think it's more appropriate for Mr. Warren to answer that question, as he's the actual applicant that will be building the property.
Okay, Mr. Warren? Mr. Warren, are you still on?
Oh, I was muted. Thank you. Specifically restate the question.
Have you been tracking the conversation and what we've got for a substitute motion with regards to potentially approving this? Where you would have.
I have, yep.
Is that going to kill the deal for you, or is that something that is doable?
So one thing that was brought up is the 50-foot setback, and that would be to the fence. And that would significantly reduce the amount of area that I could use, because I have to have room for people to come in and turn around as well. And maybe I'm incorrect in thinking this, but as I had envisioned the fence being on the property line. The buildings would be set back. Is that incorrect?
Yeah, the way the substitute motion was presented was to have a 50-foot buffer on both 63rd and on hydraulic. And in that, which would be then where the fence would be, and then between the property line and where your fence is, you would have berms and, 4 or 5 foot berms with landscaping on those two sides.
I wouldn't say that it would absolutely kill the project, but it would certainly reduce the number of units that I could provide.
Okay.
But he has no idea what the cost is gonna be. He needs to back off and go get some costs. Because what we're talking about is gonna cost him a fortune. Isn't it, Mr. Foster?
Yeah.
Just the landscaping, not counting the fence.
Okay.
If I can add that, there is some need before putting down gravel to remove the top layer of topsoil, which is going to be 8 or 10 inches across the entire property. So that would be a lot of land that would certainly provide for that berm.
Okay. Yeah, Mr. Johnson, Bill?
Mr. McKay brought up a situation there. I know there's already been a substitute motion, but I'm wondering if we shouldn't defer this for a couple of weeks let the applicant relook at some of the possibilities of how to soften this in his price range and bring it back?
Mr. Warren, does that sound like something you might want to consider as opposed to deciding today the fate of what goes on there?
Yeah, we can defer for 2 weeks, that's fine.
Okay, or however long it takes for notifications and that type of
Well,
thing.
if it's stated in the record today of when we defer it to, we don't have to re-notify.
Okay, perfect.
If we defer it, if it's decided it's deferred without a date, we would have to then go through have enough time to re-notify.
Okay.
If we specify a date, either 2 weeks from now or 2 planning commissions from now, like we could provide dates if we needed to, but if it goes on record through this meeting, we don't have to re-notify.
I would amend my substitute to defer to the next regular meeting,
So March 4th?
March 4th, yeah.
If there's no urgency, why don't we do it for 2 meetings?
Yeah, that's what I was.
Okay.
So March
That's
18th?
fine. March 18th.
Yes, Mr. McKay?
Okay, before we do that, we need to give the applicant some kind of guidelines of what we're gonna make him refer back to. Whether it be a 8-foot fence, 50-foot setback, 100-foot set, we need to give him some guidelines to be able to figure out what it's gonna cost him.
My thinking would be is that he's heard the discussion. I think it's up to him to come up with something that he thinks he can sell.
And work with city staff?
Right. See if they can come up with.
And I would add, Mr. Chairman, if, we've been keeping notes, and so if the applicant has any questions about what's been referred to, and also we've got the case planner, Philip, who can work with him to relay what the conversation has been in terms of a 50-foot setback, 8-foot-high fence, street-facing berm, double the landscaping of the city landscaping.
He may come up with a
requirements.
plan that says 35 foot. If he comes up with something that creates what we're looking for, which is separation and attractiveness, maybe he can come up with a plan that's better than what we're coming up with on the spur of the moment.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I think what's a little bit dangerous, all of us up here trying to design this for him.
Yeah, I agree.
I really think he needs to come up with a sketch and lay out kind of how he's gonna park stuff in there.
Yep.
It may be something where it's the fence is back 35 feet in part of it and
Yep.
25 feet, so it's got some jog in it, some character, rather than just have a berm 450 foot long and everything's the same.
Yep.
Just needs to put some work into it.
So there's a substitute motion. Yeah, did you have a comment, Ms. Fox?
Okay, please forgive me, fellow commissioners, because I'm really new at this, but could we ask him to develop a plan that's presented to the adjacent neighborhood associations for their feedback within 2 meetings' time, such that they're having an opportunity to react to what he would propose, because ultimately we want the neighbors to have a sense and be engaged in the process. Is it possible to ask for that?
I think that he already knows all about all the comments about not wanting it, that they're gonna have to come up with a plan to pacify, and I'd just soon not put that on us saying he's gotta do it, he better do it himself.
Okay, but then won't we need to listen to the testimony of the neighborhood again to say yes or no, we agree or we don't? So why wouldn't we just
They're
have
not gonna
them
agree.
hash it out and then come back? It doesn't work that way.
Well, he's heard it, and we have the substitute motion on the floor to defer this to the March 18th.
Did we get a second for the amendment to that motion?
For a deferral?
Yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Johnson deferred.
I just want to make sure that it was on record that
Yeah,
he was in favor
Thank you.
of the amendment.
I went to sleep up here.
Who made the motion to?
Mr. Warren.
He amended his substitute motion. We'll get the
Okay.
paperwork figured out.
So we have a motion on the floor to defer until, a substitute motion on the floor to defer until the March 18th meeting. Is there any question on the motion?
Discussion, Commissioner Blick.
Yes.
I have a question for Mr. Fox and Mr. Warren, because we kind of just put you in a situation to defer by saying, hey, let's half the committee says, let's go ahead and find a way to help you out, but then it's going to cost a lot of money, so you're going to need to go and try to figure out where it's going to be. Here's a deferral, or do you want to actually proceed today? And so it's we kind of thrown you into this situation. Do you guys want to proceed, or are we kind of forcing you in? That's why I'm trying to find out the reasoning. Do you want to go with this process, or do you want to do some research and come back and actually agree to the setbacks and the screening and all that stuff?
Would it be appropriate to ask public comment quickly to know what their opinion, how their opinions would change with additional requirements?
Not at this point. I think that would behoove you, Mr. Warren, to come up with a plan, present it, and we're not telling you to do this, but present it to at least to the two homeowners associations that have expressed concerns with this, and then maybe you guys can come up with something that will work for that.
Okay, then I would request to defer.
Do you think March 18th will be, that should be plenty of time for you to be able to get this accomplished? So we'll take the.
Can I go ahead and ask a question, please?
Yes, Mr. Fox.
The way I understand it is you've already held the public hearing, so the public has had an opportunity to weigh in. My only concern is I believe that no matter what Mr. Warren does, there is no ifs, ands, or buts about it that anybody around the neighborhood is going to be supportive of the concept. So the commission has heard what their concerns are, and if he brings back a plan that addresses and mitigates the majority of those concerns, I think that that's appropriate and he's willing to do that. But are you saying that when it comes back on March 18th, you would reopen a public hearing and reopen comments?
Yeah, we would. Yes, we would have to, unless, well, now, Mr. Wadle.
I'll defer to legal on that one. Justin, any insights?
This is Justin Wagoner again. I think in those circumstances, if there were if the comments should probably be limited to any new information in terms of what's being proposed, what the applicant may bring forward as any additional information. I think comments would be limited to that. But I think it would be appropriate to allow folks to provide a comment. Wouldn't necessarily be part of the statutorily required noticed hearing, but I think a supplemental ability to provide input on a due process could make sense there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, we have a motion on the floor, and it's been seconded. Any other questions, comments? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
All those opposed, nay.
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 Okay, let's do a roll call.
Okay, here we go.
All those in favor?
Green?
Aye.
Bill Johnson?
Aye.
McKay?
Aye.
Gross, not here. Fox?
Nay.
Dool?
Aye.
Blick?
Nay.
Nix? That was an aye. Foster?
Aye.
Warren?
Aye.
Joe Johnson?
Nay.
Miles, not here. Hartman?
Aye.
Florence?
Nay.
I've got
Passes
8-4.
8-4.
Yep, 8-4.
Motion carries. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. Moving on to our next case here.
Mr. Chairman, I have to leave. They don't get us short of a quorum on it.
What?
I said, I've got to leave, but we still got to have a quorum, don't we?
And that would give us 11.
Okay,
Yeah, we're good.
sorry.
Okay, moving on to our last case for the evening. Mr. Williams?
There you go. Matt Williams for planning staff. This is zone 2021, number 1. The applicant is requesting the rezoning of a 0.34 acre property from limited industrial to general commercial. The property is located at 803 East 17th Street and is currently developed with a building that has been used as a warehouse in the past. According to the applicant, the building was once a live workspace that it did include a residential use, although this use would have been in violation with the zoning code. The property also includes a parking lot to the north of the existing building. The applicant desires to rezone the property to general commercial to allow for the flexibility to convert part of the building to a residential use. The limited industrial zoning district does not currently allow residential uses. Properties to the north of the subject property are zoned general industrial, and they're developed with a mix of industrial uses, including a food distribution company, an outdoor storage yard, and a metal processing plant. Properties south, east, and west of the subject property are zoned limited industrial and developed with a mix of industrial uses that include parking lots, water treatment facility, a uniform rental and facility services company, a grain elevator, and an outdoor storage yard. Directly to the west of the subject property, across an alley, is a railroad spur track. And according to the Federal Railroad Administration data, the railroad spur is estimated to have 1 train movement per day. You'll notice over here to the west of the property, about a couple or 2.5 blocks, is some residential uses. They're zone TF3 and B multifamily. And then 1 block to the east of the subject property is McAdams Park, and it is zoned single family. The Community Investments Plan recommends the subject property is appropriate for new employment. That category encompasses areas that are likely to be developed or redeveloped by 2035, with uses including manufacturing, warehousing, construction, distribution, etc. The Community Investment Plan also includes a land use compatibility guideline that states residential development should not encroach upon existing or planned heavy industry. The applicant's intended residential use is not consistent with the new employment recommendation from the plan. The general commercial zoning allows a wide range of uses that are consistent with the plan. However, general commercial zoning also allows the residential uses which are not consistent. The Places for People plan identifies the subject site as being within the established central area, but it does not identify this location as being a candidate for a nodal development pattern with residential uses. Let's see, the subject property is located in an area with a mix of industrial uses and a history of heavy industrial use. The current and past industrial uses could present environmental health issues. The subject property is located in the heart of a groundwater pollution site known as the North Industrial Corridor. It's staff's opinion that the residential uses to which the applicant is seeking is not in conformance with our adopted plans and policies, and based on the information available at the time of the staff report, staff is recommending denial of the request as submitted. I'll go through a couple pictures here. Here's an aerial. You can see the different industrial uses around there. Next slide. Here's the comprehensive plan showing it in the new employment category. Next slide. And then here's some photos. So northeast of the site. Next slide. This is north. Yes, next slide. So this is looking at the site. The building is currently there on the left side of your screen. And then this is kind of looking near the railroad spur. Next slide. That is the site. Next slide. This is from the east, kind of looking at the site. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Do you have any questions for Matt? From the commission? Hearing none? Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Fox, sorry.
2 questions. Have you done sound attenuation studies for the noise level in this area? And have you done any air quality testing?
We reached out to our environmental health division here at the city, and they did have issues or concerns about the noise and the pollution levels. They're not here to speak on that, but I know that there was a study done, I think, in 95 or something, that looked at the pollution in the air, but I don't have any information on that.
I'd make a motion that we accept the recommendation to deny this application.
Well, we have to go through the whole.
Oh, sorry.
We have to go through the whole process, so.
Slap your hand.
Hold your thought.
I know it's
I'm
late.
trying to learn.
Okay,
Oh, you
okay,
didn't
so,
ask for- sorry.
are there any other questions from the commission to Matt or staff? Hearing none, we'll go to the agent or applicant, and I believe Mr. Ferris, name and address, and you have.
Yes, sir.
You have 1 minute. Oh, no, you have 10 minutes.
I'm not going to take 10 minutes. You guys have been here a long time, so I'm going to try to be as brief as possible. This is Greg Ferris, Post Office Box 573-67201. I'm the agent for the applicant on this case. I think there's been a little bit of misunderstanding. We're not trying to develop this property as residential. What Mr. Snyder has done in the past is he's taking buildings. He has made it into a business that also where someone can live and operate the business at the same time. He'd like to be able to have the flexibility to do that. This is a downzoning request, and it really shouldn't be that controversial. General commercial uses are pretty intense. You just went through some of that. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but we think this site is appropriate for the ability to do some flexible use. And it really doesn't make a lot of sense not to be able to have that flexibility. In this economy and in this time that we live in, businesses like to have the opportunity to be able to do some things, have their business and be able to operate them at the same place. Limited industrial doesn't allow that in any way, shape, or form. So by being general commercial, you still have the intense uses that are allowed. But if somebody wants to live on site and be able to operate their business, they could do that without being in violation of the zoning code. It's kind of like if you were going to do a storage yard, a lot of times those go into areas and you require them to have a residential use on site. Well, he wants to do some storage type indoors and wants to have a residence on site. He's not really allowed to do that because it's limited industrial. But we don't think that this is a huge issue. This isn't going to be a major retail residential development. However, he would like the flexibility to be able to have somebody live there if they want without having the zoning administration come and tell him that it's not allowed. Full disclosure, there were some issues. Somebody was operating a business and was living there. He wasn't aware of it at the time, found out after there were some issues, he evicted them. And that's the reason why we started this process, was just in case he found somebody that wanted to do that. The building's basically vacant now, and he'd like to be able to have flexibility to make this the highest and best use. With all that, you have residential zoning very close to this. So if there's air quality and all the noise, all the things you're talking just several hundred feet away, there's a whole residential development. So this is not introducing something into an area that doesn't already exist. With that, I'd be glad to answer any questions. And again, I apologize for speaking fast, but I know you guys are tired just like I am.
Thank you, Mr. Ferris. Are there any questions of the agent? Mr. Foster?
Mr. Ferris, please describe a little bit more detail about the residential use. What are we talking? Square footage? What kind of facilities? Who is intended to inhabit this?
A lot of times, and he's done this in a lot of different locations. He owns a lot of different properties, and he'll buy properties. And he's done a lot in the central business districts, and this isn't that far from there. And he thought this would be another opportunity where he would have a business that would come in there And it might be a small shop of some kind where somebody would then have a portion of that square footage that they lease that they could live in as well. You know, you're probably looking at 20 or 30% of the total building floor square footage that would be dedicated to residential. And again, there may be no residential in there. He may have somebody come lease the whole building that uses it, but because of the type of business he's operated, he'd like the flexibility to have somebody be able to go in there and say, yeah, I can do a business and, you know, live there. We live in a little different time than we did, you know, even a year and a half or 2 years ago, where people like to be close to their business, and rather than do everything virtual, they might like to be able to live there and be able to operate the business. And this would give them the opportunity to do that. I hope that answered your question, Mr. Foster. If not, let me know and I'll clarify it.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Ferris from the commission? Hearing none, we'll open it up to comments from the public. Is there anyone at Century 2 that would like to address this case?
Mr. Chairman, there's no comment from Century 2.
Thank you, Mary. Right answer. Is there anyone from virtually that would like to hear this case? Or not hear it, but speak to the commission on this case?
Yeah. Sorry, Alan with Greencraft.
If you could state your name and address again for the record, you have 3 minutes.
Yep. Yeah, this is Andy Allen, plant manager at Graincraft, located at 701 East 17th Street North, Wichita, Kansas, 67214. Yeah, we're located just to the east of the proposed zoning property, and we run a flour milling operation here. Run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We have a lot of moving equipment. We are a grain handling facility, so the reason we're concerned is there's some dust hazard explosion concerns, just the nature of our business. We also handle a lot of rail cars. We wash anywhere between 400 to 500 rail cars, pretty much in the warmer months. We have a lot of heavy equipment and blowers running. Concerned about having to make any major modifications to, you know, trying to reduce sound and stuff like that. Those blowers are actually located just to the east of our shed, so they would definitely be in range of loud noises. And there is a rail track, I think, between us and the property owner as well. We also do some general fumigations here, which is standard protocol for our business, where we do a structural fumigation, so we release sulfurofluoride in the plant, and then we will also vent and aerate that. You know, we follow all regular regulation and codes, but that gas is dangerous. We do have security on site, so we would be concerned about any residential, you know, young kids or families being associated with our property. Puts them at higher risk. We do follow regulations with that. So rail movement, our property receives switches basically every third shift. WTA spots cars for us. There's a lot of rail car movement, a lot of sirens and horns. The main line's just to the west of us, so they're always crossing the track, toot their horn. I don't know. I know if I was a resident, I sure as heck wouldn't want to live next to these operations. So our concern is just, you know, we're a higher risk type operation, a lot of sound, a lot of noise. If we were concerned about, you know, young kids and stuff on the property, that would be our concern. We just don't want anyone to get hurt. We also have a lot of truck traffic. There's about 70 semis that go right off 17th Street, off Mosley, come this direction. Just a lot of truck traffic. So we're just concerned. We just don't want, you know, a family living close by that could be really close to our property, put them at risk. We're just concerned about the safety of our community. So that's all I have here from Andy Allen, Graincraft. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. We do have somebody that would like to ask a question, Mr. Foster.
Sir, you mentioned that you have security and obviously run probably around the clock operation, but my question is, do you have facilities or quarters to provide for your security?
Yeah, we really just have a perimeter fence. We do not have like a 24-hour security guard. We have people that are basically on the property at all times. We have cameras. We do not have a security guard on our property at all times. No.
Thank you.
Anybody else have a question? Hearing none, hey, thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else who would like to address the commission on this case?
Yes, sir. If possible, my name is Paul Lindgren with LS Industries, 710 East 17th Street, 6714. We're directly northwest, and then we've talked to where they want to put this at, and we've talked with some of the neighbors around here, and Andy. Most of the points Andy touched on. Right now I'm under the assumption there are people living there. They come out and walk their dogs and in their robes and some other things. So obviously, as we're a company that employs, we own two companies here actually, as we employ people and we bring our customers in from all over the world, we don't really rely on local companies. We're really grateful that the streets got redone, but we're putting a lot of effort into making it a showcase here and having, people dressed and not dressed up to snuff when they're walking around the dogs, going to the bathroom on the street is not, what I would call living in a building or going with that. So, property value alone, but then again, we move big industrial machines. We make machines that do 40, 50, 60,000 pounds when we move them in and out. Again, our worry is that we would have anyone that would be around, especially when they're moving the trucks in or out. It is, it's definitely an heavy industrial working area, and on all sides of where they want to put a residence. That's pretty much all I have.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Enegren. Is there anyone that would like to, on the commission, that has a question for him? Hearing none. Is there anyone else virtually that would like to address the commission on this case?
I would, sir. This is Joanna Sawyer. I represent Winona Van Norman, which is directly northwest of this location, and we are affiliated with LS Industries. We are smaller machines, and we do have UPS freight trucks coming in and out, picking up and delivering daily, as well as FedEx Freight, Estes, Saya, and private trucking on a daily basis in and out. And to have a family that might have children around, it's extremely scary to have a chance that somebody could be out in a place that they shouldn't be and have an injury. There's also the, as Alan had mentioned, or Andy had mentioned, the train that is just to the west of that location. There is a train or two almost every single day. Those are very slow moving, constantly stop in the middle of 17th Street. I don't know if they are changing, backing up to the change stations or things like that, but there's no timing on them, and they can tend to be very dangerous, even for our business. When people are trying to go to lunch, sometimes they're stopped, and we all are very cautious and know what to look for. But to have any type of residence there, just in my opinion, it would not be a good place for any kind of living. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any questions for the speaker? Hearing none. Is there anyone? Thank you very much for your testimony. Is there anyone else virtually that would like to address the commission on this? Hearing none, we'll take it back to to Mr. Ferris, and you have 2 minutes for rebuttal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to make a couple points. First of all, there is a residential area that's just to the west and a park to the east. So anybody from that residential area that wants to go to that park is walking down 17th Street. I don't know that we've had that many people come out of that building that would be walking around the area. And it could be just as much from that residential area to the west as it would be from anywhere. So I think that the concerns of the businesses, if they're doing what's legal, keeping the noise requirements in general commercial and in industrial areas is very high. So if they're following the noise guidelines, anybody that wanted to have a business in this property and live there would realize that they would be under those situations. This is not intended for family use. If we need to put a protective overlay that no more than a couple can live in there, we don't care. I mean, this is primarily to have a business where someone can live and operate their business out of the same building. This is not to develop an apartment complex where kids and residential people. This is not at all the intent, and would not happen there. So their concerns I understand, but the concerns of people walking by their businesses, are probably just as much a concern from that neighborhood to the west going to the park as it would be anything that would happen on our property. So as long as they're operating within the guidelines of the city as far as noise, pollution, safety, and those kind of things, then it will have no impact on our property. And if they're not operating in those, whether we have somebody living there or working there, we would be just as concerned.
Okay, thank you. Are there any further questions for Mr. Ferris?
What's the name of the park, Mr. Ferris?
It's McAdams Park. It's just to the east. I think it's 1,000 feet or so.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for the agent? Hearing none, we'll bring it back to the commission for action and or
I'll
discussion.
move that we accept the recommendation of staff for denial of this application.
So we have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
Second.
And that was Mr. Dool?
Yes.
Okay. So we have a motion on the floor to take the staff's recommendation. Do we have any comments or discussion on the motion? Mr. Foster?
Just for discussion, Mr. Ferris is certainly right that we're in a different time. I know cases of people, they're having to make a choice between their business or keeping their home. And I've read cases like that. A current planning topic right now is trying to look for uses where people can live and have a business. However, I'm going to support the staff recommendation. Just, it's very difficult to get past the safety and the environmental issues that I think are with this case. So I would support the staff recommendation in the motion.
Mr. Warren?
There's a section of Derby that's on the west side of the railroad tracks, between the railroad tracks and the river, that was built into homes back in probably the 1920s or 1930s. These are some of the oldest properties in Derby that are still standing. And the entire area has now been developed into industrial. So there's probably 10 or 12 houses that are in an industrial area. Several of them back right up the railroad tracks where the trains come through at 50, 60 miles an hour and horns blaring every time they cross an intersection. Would not be an ideal place to live, but there are people that live there. This is not a good place to live. Where they live on the other side of the railroad track is not a good place to live, but some of them have to. I think in terms of an individual has got his business and wants to work at that business and then go upstairs and go to bed. I said, why couldn't we let somebody do that? And I think somebody with got kids and there's no place, go outside, nothing designed in that area for them to go, and that makes no sense at all. So I too will support the motion, but I think that it's hopefully we can figure out ways to have some flexibility on some of these when it comes up, because it is a changing world.
And I would just like to point out that the area in question that is residential is a remnant of redlining in Wichita, Kansas, where persons couldn't get loans to move to go anywhere else, and the placement of I-135 through the center of town actually disrupted the residential area, but many people had no wherewithal to move away, and the industrial and health hazards of living in a heavy industrial area like this will come to haunt the businesses around, because they'll end up being the ones held responsible. So I feel very strongly about not encouraging people to work in this heavy industrial area, adults or children.
Do we have any other comments to the motion before we vote? Okay, motion is to accept the staff's recommendation of denial. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously. I don't see anything else on the agenda for today, except for dinner and basketball. So we're going to adjourn our meeting today.